Putting those thoughts aside, Lu Shu shifted her focus back to the system interface glowing faintly in her mind. Several notifications blinked at her, drawing her attention to the list of maxed-out skills. There are quite a few. Can I upgrade any of them? She wondered aloud. She called up the list of her max skills. */ Charm of the Seedling, F rank max. */ Nature's Gift, F rank max. */ Woodcrafter, E rank max. */ World Tree Wisdom, SSS rank max. Lu Shu hummed, intrigued. Let's check how much experience it takes to rank them up. Starting with the F rank ones. / Would you like to use 326 experience points to upgrade / Charm of the Seedling, F rank max, to / Charm of the Seedling, F plus rank 1? So, 326 XP for F rank, she noted, then check the next one. / Would you like to use 326 experience points to upgrade / Nature's Gift, F rank max, to / Nature's Gift, F plus rank 1? They really do cost the same. She nodded thoughtfully, then moved on to check Woodcrafter. / Would you like to use 739 experience points to upgrade / Woodcrafter, E rank max, to / Woodcrafter, E plus rank 1? Lu Shu winced. Oof, that's painful. Finally, she hesitated at World Tree Wisdom. Should I even look at this one? What if it traumatizes my tree heart? Despite her reluctance, curiosity won out. She peeked at the prompt. / She closed the system window before it could finish loading and let out a mental sob. How am I supposed to gather that much experience? That number shouldn't even exist. QEQ. Even for a patient world tree, the sheer magnitude of the requirement was terrifying. Forget the number, she chanted, panicking. I don't even know how to say numbers beyond hundreds of thousands. What comes next? Thousands of thousands? Tens of thousands? After composing herself, Lu Shu glanced back at the measly 326 XP for F rank and found herself smiling. Yes, this humble and beautiful little number is far more reasonable. Let's stick with this one. That day, Lu Shu discovered that big numbers are only good when they belong to your stats. Since she had barely accumulated any experience, she shifted her attention to something more manageable, the basic breakthrough berry. Floor and the others would probably like it, but only upgrades up to F plus tier, whatever tier actually means. What Lu Shu didn't know was that even such a small breakthrough could cause a storm. Raising one's tier wasn't just about power, it was about destiny. A creature's tier dictated its potential, its evolution ceiling. To raise it meant improving its bloodline, increasing the chance that even future generations would be born stronger. Naturally, Lu Shu grew curious. Can I eat one of these? What's my tier, anyway? System, tell me. The system stayed silent. Useless system, she pouted. / system hint. Tier is an innate trait and cannot be directly accessed. TCH. / system hint. However, tier may be estimated from stat gains per level. Tiantian Lu Shu gains. Ether plus 7, Physique plus 9, Anima plus 8, Willpower plus 10, Destiny plus 100. Lu Shu grinned. Oh ho, / the system does have its uses. / system hint. Excluding Destiny, which is unprecedented across existence, Lu Shu's overall stat growth is comparable to a creature between D plus and C tier. Her mind blanked. How much did you say? / repeat. D plus to C tier. I heard you. That was just a rhetorical question, she snapped. Then her thoughts drifted. Didn't Floor say Rose Fairies were F plus tier? Well, not important. She turned back to her current project, the berry itself. Let's see. It's E rank. How many shards does it need? She selected the Sylvanium branch, one of her core limbs, to attempt the growth. Its surface gleamed with a subtle luster, marking its durability and power. It's sturdy and well-connected, but no willow strike? A missed opportunity. She decided to experiment by growing a standard delicious berry first. A few minutes passed, and a small, vibrant flower bloomed with a fresh batch of berries. So, nothing really different, she muttered. Let's try the breakthrough berry now. Her ether and anima swirled around her trunk, flowing through the sylvanium branch. Just as she tried to flood the budding flower with energy, her senses flared in warning. Opening her world tree eye, she inspected the branch. There was no danger, but her instincts screamed caution. She slowed down and tried again, this time gradually feeding it. Let's start with 5 shards of each per second. Seconds ticked by, then minutes. Wait, what? She gasped. I've fed over 600 of each shard, and the flower's barely grown? She checked her reserves, more than 1/6 already gone. You glutton! Are you trying to eat me out of house and root? Despite her frustration, the flower was finally responding. Encouraged, she changed tactics. All right, let's allocate 19 units of hourly energy regeneration to you. It was a slow, constant drain, but a necessary one. A berry that could influence Tyr wasn't going to come cheap. What she didn't expect was that it would take an entire week. By the time the flower stopped absorbing energy, Lu Shu was awestruck. It devoured 5,000 ether and anima shards. Even while multitasking with other activities, she had kept feeding the flower passively. Now that the process was over, she sensed one more thing. If I'm right, it'll take 300 days to bear fruit. An entire year. She started reorganizing her energy allocation. Let's dedicate 30% to enchanted growth, 20% to the breakthrough berry, and the rest to general fruit production. Yes, that works. Just as she finished, Floor's voice echoed in her mind. Lu Shu, there's been increased movement in the forest. More humans are appearing near the outer regions. There's word of an incoming beast tide. Lu Shu blinked, puzzled. Floor explained, as if anticipating it. We Rose fairies are classified as monsters, not true sylvans or humans. That's why we're often swept up with the tide. Normally, to avoid the beast tide, monsters simply join it. But we're not doing that. We have to leave you behind, and we won't. Lu Shu felt warmth in her wooden heart. But that doesn't mean we're safe. Some beasts trample anything in their path, even trees, especially weak ones. Floor's tone grew serious. That's why I want you to keep your ternary essences, ether, anima, and physique, fully stocked. Right now, you're at 70%. Lu Shu pulsed her acknowledgement, focused once again. Floor added, I'll be gone for a while to meet an acquaintance. Lu Shu tilted her head curiously, not knowing that her first encounter with outsiders was just around the corner. In the heart of Fortuna City, the streets pulsed with vibrant life. Protected by the colossal world tree, the city was always alive with activity. But today, the influx of visitors gave it a festival-like energy. Stalls bustled, laughter echoed, and energy shimmered in the air. Amid the crowd, a tall Sylvan woman strolled through the lively streets, drawing lingering glances from passers-by. Wisps of flame danced around her shoulders, flickering in hues of orange and gold. Her fiery presence was as rare as it was striking. Sylvans rarely wielded flame, a trait seen as unnatural for a race so bound to earth and life. She walked with calm confidence, her crimson dress flowing around her slender frame like liquid fire. Heads turned as she passed, not just because of her beauty, but because of the unapologetic energy she carried with every step. Her name was Cinderelle. It's already been months since I entered the academy, she thought as she moved through the crowd, eyes flickering from stall to street to sky. Time moves too quickly. She paused at the mouth of a quieter street. Her eyes narrowed. This is where it happened, she murmured aloud. Something invisible caught her attention, an old memory, or perhaps a sensation. Her gaze drifted as if following the path of a leaf caught in wind. Where did it come from, and where did it go? A frown touched her lips. That memory still haunted her, a single leaf, old and withered, fluttering with purpose. She hadn't been allowed to touch it. They stopped her. If they hadn't, I could have. She stopped herself. Her lips curved into a bitter smile. I could have what, Cinderelle? Changed the world. She looked up at the sky, bright, cloudless, uncaring. Will I ever meet her? She whispered. The one that Leaf belonged to. Even after all these years, she remembered the exact sensation. The heartbeat racing, the world sharpening into clarity, the pull of something ancient and immense. She's mine, Cinderelle thought, a quiet flame igniting in her heart. I'll find her, no matter what. She didn't need to worry about onlookers. No one disturbed her. Not only was she well known in the city, but this place, this street, had become a part of her. She returned here every month like a pilgrim drawn by something beyond memory. Cinder, days again, huh? The voice broke through a reverie. She turned to see a familiar figure approaching. Tall, handsome, black hair tousled by the wind, deep blue eyes gleaming with warmth. Theodore. He waved as he jogged up to her, grinning. Routine stop again? Cinderelle laughed softly, shaking her head. Something like that. What about you? He scratched his cheek. Same as always. Then he smirked. Also wanted to see you. She rolled her eyes. Are you here to recruit me again? I've told you. I'm not joining any faction until I graduate. Theodore shrugged. Yeah, I know. Just thought I'd try again. You'd be perfect for the Azure Bell Heather sect, one of the top sects around here. I'm sure it's excellent, Cinderelle replied, her tone cool, but not unkind. But I'm not interested. No matter how tempting the offer, my future is mine to decide. Theodore hesitated, a flicker of emotion crossing his face. I just wanted to make sure our bond wouldn't break after graduation. Cinderelle looked at him thoughtfully. A bond isn't enough to determine my life path. I have decades, centuries even. You should focus on your own choices, not mine. He gave a half smile. Right. Sylvans can be guided up to level 10 in the academy, right? She nodded. Yes. Humans don't live long enough to benefit from that, so the limit's lower for them. There was silence. Then, Theodore's gaze deepened. Cinder, do you really not want to give it a try? She blinked, brows raising slightly. Try what? Us, he said, stepping closer. I want to be with you. I don't care that we're human and Sylvan. I'll make sure you never regret loving me. Cinderelle's expression softened, but not in the way he hoped. It was pity, not affection. I've already told you, haven't I? She said gently. It's not about race. It's about emotion. If I loved you, I would have said yes long ago. But I don't. He looked wounded. Why not? What do I lack? She snorted. Maybe humility. I'm serious, Cinder. She studied him in silence, as if examining a curious specimen. Theodore, do human men really understand Sylvans at all? She didn't voice her deeper thoughts. The age gap, the lifestyle, even our attraction to plant life. Most humans find it repulsive. In the end, it's always us who lose something. He pressed on. But don't Sylvans need partners too? Isn't that part of your nature? Then, with a trace of sarcasm he failed to hide. Or are you planning to find your soulmate in the trees? There it was. Cinderelle's eyes narrowed. Her presence sharpened like a blade. She stepped forward until only a breath separated them. And what if I did? Theodore blinked, startled. Don't cross the line, Theodore, she said, voice cool as dew. Plant creatures are just as valid as you. In fact, they're often more alive than most humans I've met. He raised his hands in surrender. All right. That was out of line. Cinderelle exhaled, then pointed toward the world tree towering at the heart of Fortuna. Do you see her as dead? As ugly? As something unintelligent? He followed her gaze. The world tree loomed high into the sky, its trunk rising in the elegant form of a woman, arms outstretched to cradle the heavens. Leaves and vines wrapped around her form like natural garments, barely concealing the curves. There were no features on the face, but the silhouette radiated presence and power. Theodore had studied the myths. He knew the trunk's form was not for aesthetics. It was to attract compatible beings. The world tree could reproduce alone, but to birth Sylvans or humanoids, she needed something more, or someone. Even as a human, he couldn't deny it. She was beautiful, and yet shame curled in his stomach. He couldn't accept that the woman he wanted might one day choose a tree over him. Cinderelle saw that hesitation, and she understood. She smiled sadly. So this is the moment. That's why, she said softly. It's better to find someone who sees the world the way you do. Someone who loves you for all that you are. Without boundaries. Without shame. She stepped back. We don't share that, Theodore. And that's why this ends here. His expression faltered. Cinder, you don't love me, she said, eyes calm. You desire me. That's not the same. He didn't argue. He turned, walked away, and disappeared into the crowd, leaving Cinderiel standing beneath the shadow of the world tree. She didn't chase him.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
Since Cinderiel was little, her appearance and talent had been well above average. Naturally, there were many suitors around her who tried to court her. Theodore was not the first, and he would probably not be the last. During her school days before she came to the academy, it was to the point that her friends created a "who hasn't confessed to Cinderiel" list, something she just rolled her eyes at. As she looked at Theodore's back, Cinderiel remembered a question she heard from one of her human friends back then. Why don't you accept a confession, even if it is just a test? She never got to answer because a Sylvan friend interrupted, explaining how important love was for Sylvans, etc. But that question got stuck in Cinderiel's brain. Right? Why have I always ignored these things? I never even took a good look at any of the people confessing to me. From the very beginning, Cinderiel had never felt any attraction toward anyone in a romantic sense. She remembered that when they were adolescents and their hormones started working, each time they went on a trip to the forest, she could spot a few trees that looked quite charming to her. Moreover, when she looked at the towering world tree, her heart would pound in awe. Still, even at the sight of these magnificent trees, she couldn't feel the mythical love that she was not searching for, and more like expecting to feel eventually. Love, huh? Strangely, each time she thought about love, the yellow and withered leaf that she had seen as a child constantly flashed in her mind. Her brows frowned. Why is it? She was bewildered. You must know that, regardless of a Sylvan's sexuality, being attracted to a single leaf was like being attracted to the nail of a person without knowing how the person really looked. In short, it was a really strange situation for Cinderiel. She was sure she liked that leaf's owner, but why she was so attracted was still a mystery. This is what brought her here. Her doubts had started to grow alongside her maturity, making her question more and more things that she previously took for granted. To get rid of these doubts, she wanted to explore and try to search for them. A Sylvan's natural lifespan was at least thrice as long as an average human's, and this is the lifespan for those Sylvans that died young because of low levels. As they gained levels and strength, their lifespan increased more than other races, and they could maintain their peak health for most of their lives. So wasting a few decades searching for things like a floating leaf was not a big deal for Cinderiel. When she returned, she would still be in her prime, or so was the plan in her head. First, she wanted to learn as much as she could in the academy, graduate, and then explore the world to find that leaf so that she could track its origin. Naturally, Cinderiel didn't think that such a withered leaf could be found, but what she wanted to search for were similar ones. Previously, even with that leaf in mind, she was too young and low-leveled to go on her own adventure to investigate and search for it. Today was different. The reason she came to Fortuna City from the academy was to start her search. She had a month without classes, so she wanted to take advantage of it and go out. With her diligence and the academy's helping giving resources, she reached level 6 a week ago and consolidated her strength. With her natural attributes and powerful skills, she was confident in protecting herself even against a level 10 or above being. From what she had read, the golden sap forest she was going to enter had a few tribes, but none of them had creatures of level 12 or higher, which were the ones she would fear. The reason Cinderiel was so unafraid was the same that made Sylvans such a dominant race in the entire world. Most Sylvans had an innate ability that they had a chance to awaken after entering level 5 and beyond. Some unlocked it at level 5, others at 9, others at 20. It depended. Cinderiel was a talented Sylvan, so she awakened it at level 6. I'm not the only one that did so, though. Cinderiel's mind flashed with a particular green-haired woman, but she quickly ignored it. Her other reason is the strange ability that she had only shared with both her parents. As long as they were strong enough, each race could see different depths and parts of other people's systems by analyzing them. Humans, and most creatures that were considered monsters, could see the ternary essences and levels of creatures. Beast humans were similar, but they had the advantage of being able to see the race and some basic titles as well. Then, Sylvans were completely out of the norm beings, able to do all of what beast humans could do, and then add the attributes and affinity percentages. However, Cinderiel could see deeper into the system's stats as if she were a world tree. Besides all of the above, her ability to look at titles was much more powerful, and she could even tell some of her talents and passive skills. Plus, the resistance percentage was also something that would be wide open for her as long as the person she analyzed wasn't too strong for her. The only things hidden from her were the energy method, some titles, some talents, some passive skills, and a creature's accumulated experience. The rest was visible to her. If there was a disadvantage, it was that the deeper she peered, the stronger the sensation of someone looking at the person she analyzed would grow. Getting caught was very easy if she wasn't careful. Cinderiel looked at the giant world tree and pondered. Should I try to analyze it? It wasn't prohibited to try it in Fortuna City because the natural defenses of a world tree were even effective against much higher-level people. She had even tried in the past and had been met with failure. This time was the first time she tried with her new system range that she strangely unlocked after level 5. Name? Titles. Race, Seedling World Tree of Fortune. Energy method. Level, 26, / Ether Mana Shards, / Foer Body Shards, / Anima Energy Shards, / Attributes, Ether, Physique, Anima, Willpower, Destiny, Affinity Percentage, Ether Resonance, Physique Refinement, Anima Affinity, Resistance Percentage, Ether Resistance, Physique Resistance, Spiritual Resistance, Mental Resistance. Talents. Passive skills. Destined Sight, D, rank level 1. The first time a non-hostile creature sees you, they will gain 100 destiny points for a short duration. Cinderiel couldn't help but be stunned. As expected, a high-level world tree has certain anti-observation skills. Still, those are 6 question marks. Cinderiel knew that her observation gave her an accurate number of digits, even if they were all question marks. This meant that the world tree had from 100,000 to 999,999 shards of ternary essences. This is a bit. Cinderiel looked at her own stats and couldn't help but gulp. Powerful. Too powerful. Cinderiel discreetly looked around, only looking at people's levels walking on the streets, and she couldn't see any question marks. The highest she saw was a level 21 walking in luxurious armor. However, she had to look away as that person quickly turned to look in her direction. Thankfully, she wasn't discovered. I need to be careful with my curiosity. Cinderiel shook her head and walked toward the Adventure Bazaar, where she wanted to take quest. She had done the registration a few weeks ago, so she was more than ready for it. After walking for a while, she arrived at the establishment and entered inside. The building was large enough to stick out between all the surroundings once. While it wasn't a vastly profitable business because it was the only one in Fortuna City, it had enough income to become a large and luxurious place. The reason others didn't create competition was because Fortuna's world tree herself had constructed this building. Cinderiel remembered hearing about an incident a while ago when a group ignored warnings and built a bridge. Then in one night it was gone. Nobody knew what happened, but they understood that the world tree's involvement was necessary for something like that to happen. Hence, she didn't doubt they were squashed by the powerful being safeguarding this entire city. This happened many years before she was born, so it was from a while ago. However, the warning was so powerful that even today, people abide by rules without daring to disrespect the absolute ruler of this area. Inside the Adventure Bazaar, you could see an organized reception with queues for different types of requests and staff walking around ready to answer questions or help people. The flashiest thing about this place was the variety of equipment everyone wore. Thanks to her performance within the school, she managed to win a few nice low-level flawed items. However, most of her equipment was unranked. She wore a beautiful red dress with a black waistband. On her arms, she wore elbow-long gloves with excellent protection, and her staff was slung over her back. Her feet were wrapped in decent shocks, and she wore quite comfortable shin-height boots. Other than this, she had a short sword at her waist just in case she lost her staff. Slung on her back, a lovely black backpack that could hold quite a lot at a glance could be seen. It was not filled by any means, but it had some things like camping materials and other necessities that didn't occupy much space and were light. To accept quests. Over there, Cinderelle approached a queue and waited patiently. It will take around half an hour. As she waited, she felt a familiar aura and turned to look over. There, a woman of her age with a curvy and alluring figure was walking down the stairs holding a staff similar to hers. Their heights were similar, but their body types were the opposite. While Cinderelle was a lithe and agile-looking cool woman, the one walking down the stairs had a perfect hourglass figure that tempted the viewer to hug her thin waist. Furthermore, the quality of the staff that the woman held was much higher than hers. Her eyes couldn't help but lock on it. What's with that staff? Cinderelle strangely felt jealous when she saw that staff in Verdantia's hands and wanted to snatch it somehow. However, before the murkiness in her gaze reached her heart, she snapped out of it. Her face changed. Snatch it? Am I crazy? However, as she looked at that staff, she couldn't help it as the feeling of stepping forward and taking it for herself came from deep within her. When they looked at each other, Verdantia raised her hand and called her. Miss Cinderelle, it is a surprise seeing you here. Cinderelle saw her eyes go on her back and smiling. Is this your first time going on an adventure? Cinderelle blinked and blushed a bit. Is there something wrong with my setup? Verdantia shook her head with a smile. Some of the things you have are a bit excessive unless you're going on a long exploration. But it's mostly correct. Cinderelle nodded, her eyes moving toward the staff from time to time. Verdantia naturally caught her eyes and asked, Something wrong with my staff? Cinderelle coughed and shook her head. No, it's just, what materials did you use to make it? Verdantia's eyes gained a touch of wariness. That's a strangely specific question, no? Cinderelle laughed, scratching the back of her head. Is it? Ha. Sorry, it was just stunning and eye-catching. I was honestly curious. Verdantia's eyebrow raised. Oh, stunning and eye-catching, you say? Miss Cinderelle, this staff is nothing but a brown-colored staff with a branch coiled around it. Cinderelle waved her hands and changed the subject. Don't worry about that. Also, you seem like you come here often. Verdantia squinted for a few seconds, but after a while, she let it go and answered her. I do come quite often. While I usually go solo, there are times when the forest is too dangerous and I need to gather in groups. Cinderelle nodded and looked at Verdantia's backpack. What do you carry there? Verdantia paused for a second before answering. Books. Cinderelle asked again, confused. I meant in the backpack. Verdantia nodded with a smile. You heard it right. Why are you carrying books to the wild? Cinderelle was flabbergasted. Verdantia shrugged. The red-haired Sylvan looked at the green-haired one with an incomprehensible face. Is this the difference between a veteran and a newbie? I prepared with care, yet she currently looks as if she is going on a picnic. Verdantia placed a hand over her mouth and laughed. Don't look at me like that. As a Sylvan related to nature, very few creatures are hostile to me. If I had fire affinity like you do, I would have needed to be as careful as you. Cinderelle found the explanation reasonable, but not so much. I see. While they were talking, someone approached them by calling them. Verdantia, where are you going out this time? I thought you would remain at home, making potions and reading again. The green-haired woman turned to look and saw her usual companions. She had changed groups after what happened in the past, and honestly, Verdantia was quite satisfied with them. She smiled, her aura gentle and nature-like. Even between Sylvans, it was clear that her closeness to nature was extraordinary. I'm going to the Golden Sap Forest. I need a few fungi that only grow over there, but if I'm lucky, I might find new plants or other interesting flora. Cinderella's ears perked up. Golden Sap Forest? Isn't that the place I decided to explore this time as well? Oh, well, you should be able to defend yourself in that area. However, be careful. Cinderella blinked and gave Verdantia a deeper look. What level is she? She wanted to check, but doing so with close people felt a bit too invasive. As an example, it was similar to seeing someone bare in one of those magazines compared to seeing a friend of the opposite sex naked in front of you. While many didn't consider it that big of a privacy breach, it was considered polite not to do so. One of her male friends nodded. Well, that place is quite safe. With your level 7 strength, you should be okay. Moreover, you have that low-grade flawed level staff with you. It should be a walk in the park. Verdantia looked nodded with a smile. Yes, there shouldn't be any other problems. Meanwhile, Cinderella's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Level 7, low grade? What is she doing with something so expensive? You must realize that even some level 10 explorers hadn't worn a low-grade item in their lives. Only wealthy people of level 15 and above started wearing them if they ever did. Having one at level 7 was too luxurious. Verdantia smiled a bit awkwardly. Sadly, it ended up being a level 10 weapon, so I can't fully bring out its strength. Cinderella couldn't hold her interest and asked, what are its stats? Verdantia thought for a moment and shared them with Cinderella. While they weren't close friends, they had shared enough conversations to know that she was trustworthy. These stats are the ones without the level penalty. With it, I can only use around 50% of its strength. Cinderella nodded and looked at it. Level 10 Nature Tree Staff, low-grade flawed level. Plus 50 Ether Mana. Plus 50 Foer. Plus 600 Anima Energy. Ether, plus 5. Physique, plus 5. Anima, plus 50. Willpower, plus 5. Cinderella almost coughed a lung out. Plus 50 anima? Huh. And this is the weakened version. Verdantia's companions nodded empathetically. Honestly, it is a waste. Cinderella looked at them, puzzled. What's a waste? Verdantia coughed, but one of them smirked and continued speaking. See that branch coiled around the staff? That staff was a basic grade complete level staff, but after coiling that branch, it jumped directly to the low grade. Cinderella's eyes flashed for a second and asked, Oh, what? Verdantia sighed, and her companion spoke. Because that branch is a D+ rank branch. Cinderella was petrified on the spot. Not even her facial muscles were twitching. DD+ rank. Her friends shook her head. If she were patient and used it as a base material when she had the resources, who knows what kind of monster weapon she could have created. Sadly, it is already fused with her current staff, so there is nothing we can do. Verdantia coughed loudly this time and changed the subject. Anyway, I think it's your turn, Miss Cinderella. The fire Sylvan followed Verdantia's finger and saw that the queue before her had disappeared as they talked. Oh, well, let me go and get my first quest. She approached the counter and followed the procedures without problems. With a smile, she turned around and saw that Verdantia and the others had left. TSK. They could have said goodbye or something. Shaking her head, she exited the building when a new notification appeared in her system interface. Quest received. Explore the recent movements in the Golden Sap Forest. Creatures are starting to become more active, and there is a chance of a beast tide. Completion condition. Gather enough information to be useful. Reward. Sylvanium shards, 2. Ethereum shards, 10. Ascendium shards, 10. Looking at the notification, Cinderella was baffled for the end time today. A Sylvan quest? My first quest turned out to be a Sylvan quest. There were 2 types of quests in the world. The first type was regular quests created by creatures, which were the most abundant and weren't registered in the system interface. The rewards were given by real entities, and it was usually done in the local currency or even with items. For example, a quest about exterminating a plague in a particular house, a quest about hunting for a specific creature, etc. When created, all quests were regular quests. However, very rarely, there were some quests people dubbed as Sylvan quests. Sylvan quests were admitted as an official quest by the system, and other than the expected rewards by the one who created it, the person who completed it to the system's satisfaction would receive extra rewards from the system itself. These rewards were highly varied, from a few coins to extremely rare equipment, to large amounts of experience points, or other kinds of bonuses like permanent attribute increases, potential increases, and many more things. The number of possible rewards was so vast that even when there was a registry, people added new ones almost daily. However, the same quest might not trigger for different beings. They were called Sylvan quests because most of the time they happened to Sylvans. This was another advantage over other creatures and another reason why extremist groups hated Sylvans just for existing. If humans had accepted the quest to explore the forest, they would have probably never triggered the Sylvan quest Cinderiel had. That didn't mean humans couldn't trigger them, but the conditions were much stricter and more unique. They were called Sylvan quests for a reason. The rewards Cinderiel had were attractive, as they were the universal currencies. Universal currencies worked everywhere because they could be used to create, enhance, or produce varied structures and items. Between them, Sylvanium shard were used for all kinds of construction, equipment forging, potion making, and many more. It could be said that, without Sylvanium, their current society wouldn't be able to develop as much as it has, without hurting the environment as little as they did. Of course, there were other kinds of materials. Still, Sylvans and most humans didn't use them because Sylvanium was much more efficient and valuable and could be used to create basically anything. Then, the other two currencies she received, Ethereum and Ascendium, were used similarly to Sylvanium. But, contrary to Sylvanium's all-encompassing use, these three were used for specific items. Items that enhanced or used ether mana needed Ethereum and Sylvanium. Items that enhanced or used anima energy needed Ascendium and Sylvanium. Of all the items, those that boosted destiny were the rarest and most extraordinary. More than 99% of those in circulation were rewarded by Sylvan quests in the past, and they were treated like precious babies by those who owned them. Destiny was a stat that couldn't be changed by regular means, so anything that modified it was extremely precious. Producing items that used all universal currencies was also very complicated, almost impossible because Ascendium, Ethereum, Cognium, and Celestium reacted harshly when combined. If any producer managed to create even one flawed basic quality item by using all four materials, they would instantly become famous. It was something that almost never happened, though. So, when Cinderiel saw the rewards of the quest, her eyebrows shot up with pleasant surprise, and her lips arched. Before leaving, Cinderiel decided to check her current equipment. Level 5 Blaze Iron Sword, basic rank complete level. Plus 60 ether mana. Ether 10. Level 5 Blaze Leaf Robe, basic rank complete level. Plus 25 ether mana. Plus 94. Plus 25 anima energy. Ether plus 5. Physique plus 15. Anima plus 5. Willpower plus 5. Level 5 Blaze Bark Staff, basic rank flawless level. Plus 90 ether mana. Plus 25 Foer. Plus 25 anima energy. Ether plus 15. Physique plus 5. Anima plus 5. Willpower plus 5. Usually, carrying 2 weapons and 1 defensive treasure was considered wealthy, especially if one of them was of flawless quality. To say that Cinderiel was powerfully equipped was an understatement. This was all thanks to the Academy's benefits she had gained, which lent her these items as long as she was a student. Well, if I break, lose, or damage them, I will have to pay for reparations from my own pocket. I need to be careful. With confidence, Cinderiel left with a caravan toward the forest. Meanwhile, in the Golden Sap Forest, things were changing quickly. It had been a while since Lu Shu arrived at level 4, and her experience had accumulated enough to buy the first skill upgrade. Moreover, during this time, the Rose Fairies managed to keep themselves a bit more hidden than usual, attracting wild animals that wanted to take a taste of Lu Shu, only to get, quite literally, sliced in half by her branches. At level 4, Lu Shu's basic stats rivaled those of level 10 creatures. She had grown to be a force to be reckoned with, strong enough to face almost all creatures in the Golden Sap Forest. But that was speaking about normal creatures. Lu Shu found, surprisingly, quite a lot of resistance from the trees surrounding her. While they were all between levels 6 and 9, she had been battling more than one of them at a time. Some trees posed some resistance to her roots, making it a slow battle for dominance. Because her regeneration was absurd, Lu Shu made it a secondary action to clean up her surroundings. So, all of this naturally awarded her abundant experience points. She had killed quite a few creatures, 7 level 5S, 5 level 6S, 2 level 8S, and 1 level 9. This gave her a total of 124 experience points. Then, because 2 months had passed since she leveled up, she gained another 960 experience points, making her accumulated experience equal to 1084 experience. Lu Shu looked at that number with a thoughtful face. I'm leveling up so fast. I'm already halfway through. If I wait 3 more months or so, I should be able to reach level 5. But Lu Shu looked at her skills and pondered. I should level up the skills. Why did she think as such? One of them was Nature's Gift, which is one of her most used skills. The other was Charm of the Seedling, an interesting skill that helped her and similarly placed her in a pinch in the past. So, after giving it some light thought, Lu Shu finally decided to upgrade them. Do you want to use 326 experience points to increase Nature's Gift, F rank level max, to Nature's Gift, F plus rank level 1? Yes. 326 experience points consumed. Nature's Gift has gone from F rank to F plus rank. Nature's Gift, F plus rank level 10/1200, produces small, magical fruits with unique and beneficial properties. It uses anima energy and ether mana to produce. Depending on the strength of the fruits, there is a chance that they will also need foer. You can fasten their ripening time by 60 days, spending as much ether mana and anima energy as current fruits available. Delicious Berry, F rank, plus 1 EXP to level 9 and lower beings. Max, 3. Basic Foer Berry, F rank, plus 10 Foer body shards. Max, 5. Basic Mana Berry, F rank, plus 10 Ether Mana Shards. Max, 5. Basic Energy Berry, F rank, plus 10 Anima Energy Shards. Max, 5. Asterisk Basic Breakthrough Berry, E rank, plus 1 sub-tier, max F+. 1 every 10 years. The fruits she could create didn't change, but now it was much cheaper and faster to make them. Her ability to speed up went from 30 to 60 days. Nice! With this, I will be able to produce much more. From her Ether Mana Regeneration's 106 points, she always used 36 of them for Enchanted Growth, around 40 for all the berries except the Breakthrough Berry, for which she used 10 separate energy points. Finally, the last 20 were used by Lu Shu to fight things around her. 20 Ether Mana and Anima Energy in an hour didn't seem like much, but she could get things done slowly. The rest of her Ternary Essence reserves were only touched when there was an active situation that needed her attention. But I'm not done yet. Hee. Do you want to use 326 experience points to increase Charm of the Seedling, F rank level max, to Charm of the Seedling, F plus rank level 1? Of course I want it. 326 experience points consumed. Charm of the Seedling has gone from F rank to F plus rank. Charm of the Seedling, F rank level 10 out of 1200, attracts small animals and insects to the area, fostering a harmonious ecosystem. There's a very small chance of attracting a friendly, bigger animal or insects that will help protect you. Creatures below the F plus rank will be affected with much ease. The only change here is what kind of creatures get affected. That's not bad. Lu Shu was unsure, as this skill has always been quite elusive for her. Meanwhile, as soon as she upgraded her skill, a visible aura spread from her, moving the fallen leaves and grass with a refreshing breeze. The rose fairies that were flying around stopped, looking at the tree with gentle smiles. They couldn't help but feel thankful that they came here. Lu Shu's berries have been nothing but a lifesaver and had also pushed many young fairies up the levels at a very quick pace. Slowly yet surely, all rose fairies were getting stronger. Floor was resting on Lu Shu's canopy when she felt the refreshing breeze, making her smile. Did you upgrade something, Lu Shu? It makes the aura around you much gentler and welcoming. I like it. Our cute Lu Shu heard her and laughed in her mind. Nice. I'm glad I can make them feel better around me. I hope others feel like that too in the future. Then, she refocused on her things. Her accumulated experience had been reduced to 432 points, making her level up objective quite distant again. Not that Lu Shu minded. She was not in a rush. Her main objective had always been slow, steady, but constant growth. As she thought of these things, her world tree, I caught something in the rose fairy garden. Oh, some of the flowers are about to open. Lu Shu consciously used her enchanting growth aura on the flower, and its petals spread open, blooming into a beautiful flower with a sleeping bear woman in the middle. Her appearance was similar to an 8 to 10-year-old, making her look cute and adorable. Another rose fairy. Thanks to her aid with enchanted growth, there was a rose fairy birth rate boom ongoing. All of them were still at a really low level, but the future was promising for the race. For now, their population was approaching 160 rose fairies. The little creature that had just been born opened rose fairs, characteristic red, jewel-like eyes, and looked around dazedly. It was clear that the rose fairy didn't know anything at all as it just sat there, not moving. Lu Shu was curious and analyzed her. Name. Titles. Rose fairy affinity with plant beings increased by 10%. Race. Rose fairy. Energy method. Simple pollination. Gain experience equal to flora level * tier / your level per flower. Can be used once a day. Level 10/140. Ether mana shards 46 of 46. Forward body shards 22 of 22. Anima energy shards 22 of 22. Attributes: Ether 4, Physique 2, Anima 2, Willpower 2, Destiny 2. Affinity percentage: Ether resonance 15, Physique refinement 7, Anima affinity 10. Resistance percentage: Ether resistance 6, Physique resistance 4, Spiritual resistance 4, Mental resistance 4. Talents. Passive skills. Accumulated experience 0. Oh, she is stronger than others. As a reference, an ordinary rose fairy was born at level 0, so they all had 10 in their ternary essences and 1 in their attributes like most creatures. Even when they leveled up, their stats were half of what this new rose fairy had. As Lu Shu observed, a rose fairy approached. Unlike the usual youthful look most of them had, she had a clearly weaker constitution with wrinkles at the side of her eyes. Her flying was also slower and more gently paced, and while her body remained slender, one could feel the elderly rose fairy, who was in charge of taking care of the rose fairy flowers, approached with a smile. And when she saw her ternary essences, she was surprised, too. Oh, you are a powerful one, little seed. Even stronger than that child, Floor. The newborn fairy looked over blankly and blinked. Clearly, she couldn't speak, and probably her intelligence was far from developed. However, there were some basic instincts in her, like all creatures had, and the immature fairy slowly tried to stand up while falling back on the recently opened flower. The wings on her back were undeveloped, but they were changing from a wet white color to their usual greenish color quite quickly. The elderly rose fairy didn't do anything and just watched with a smile. Meanwhile, when Floor was mentioned, Lu Shu focused her world tree eye on the senior rose fairy. This action was noticed by the elderly rose fairy as Lu Shu's presence enveloped her. The elderly fairy looked at Lu Shu with a gentle smile and asked, "Are you curious about Floor?" Lu Shu? Lu Shu answered enthusiastically, "Yes. How was Floor when she was little?" The rose fairy slowly flew toward the newly born one when the young fairy started flapping her developing wings with a buzzing sound. While doing her routine, the elderly fairy spoke about Floor. "Well, Floor's flower seed was birthed by a close friend of mine. She was quite a gentle one. The Rose Fairy sighed. However, as a high-level fairy, she battled outside a lot, and eventually, she died by the claws of a river beaver. The woman grabbed one hand of the young Rose Fairy and slowly flew up, helping the newly born one fly up with her. Flying was the Rose Fairy's method to remain as a top race in the dangerous forest, adding their innate affinity with wind ether mana. They all learned how to fly right after their birth. Lu Shu listened silently to the tales of Floor's mother for a few minutes, showing how much this elderly Rose Fairy liked that person. The elderly Rose Fairy continued. Well, enough of her. I guess you want to know more about Floor, right? Haha. Sorry, Lu Shu. This sack of old bones sometimes gets sidetracked. Lu Shu was surprised by this fairy's ternary stats. While she was a level 7 Rose Fairy, her stats were similar to those of the level 5 young Rose Fairies. In the end, while level was an indicator of a creature's life level, stats were an indicator of a creature's current strength. Just seeing the decrease in them, Lu Shu instinctively knew that this particular Rose Fairy didn't have much left. The elderly Rose Fairy spoke gently as she guided the recently born one around her trunk. When Floor was born, I took care of her in honor of my friend. In the words of some city races, I'm somewhat close to her adoptive mother. Oh, a mother. Lu Shu couldn't help but think. Who was my mother? Probably another tree with branches similar to mine. For now, Lu Shu hadn't seen trees with dropping branches like hers, as most had thick and sturdy ones. Her world tree eye vision had already broken through the 100-meter mark, allowing her to see much more of the world around her. Floor was actually a weak Rose Fairy at first. Hearing the woman speak again, Lu Shu refocused. Her attributes are nothing but half of what this one has, haha. The Rose Fairy smiled. However, as she grew up, Floor was always very active. She was the first to push herself and learn spells, fight for resources, enter the battlefield early, and more. Believe it or not, she was quite bloodthirsty, and she has hunted river beavers and thornstride since she was level 4. Her constant fighting bore fruits and gave her strength. She naturally broke through her tier, going from an F tier to an F plus tier 1. After that, Floor was even more active. Floor has battled during 80% of her few decades of life. That's how she broke through the limit and entered level 10. The elderly Rose Fairy smiled. That's why, when she now lazes around, we don't say anything. She is our protector, our guardian shield. Her presence lets us all rest comfortably at night and wake up without fearing the outside. We know for certain that if something happens, Floor will be the first to move. Lu Shu heard her, and her mind went into deep thought. A protector brings happiness to those close. After Lu Shu heard her story, she was thoughtful for a while. Her mind pondered between how her instincts told her how to act and what she had just heard. As a world tree, Lu Shu had a natural predisposition to be an observer. As long as she was not being threatened, she would rarely act. This was not because she was indifferent, but because world trees perceived living beings differently from others. For them, a life being ended was part of a natural cycle, regardless of how it happened. The only thing that world trees would never allow was danger to themselves since, as living beings, they had the right to protect themselves as much as any other or to fight for their existence. What Lu Shu had been recently doing about fighting nearby trees that reacted violently to her expansion was a nice example. But now, the idea of interfering and saving those close to her was presented to her rather eloquently. Hearing such a tale, Lu Shu bounced back and forth between her current role and what the elderly Rose Fairy spoke about. Protector? Do I need to become one? But, at the end of the day, her mind was too different compared to that of a human to delve into the moral and ethical reasoning behind this conundrum. So, while the thought was there, she didn't act on it and rather placed it in the back of her mind. Did this mean that world trees were ungrateful toward creatures that took care of them? It did not. From the very beginning, Lu Shu never really cared about what or who took her fruits. At first, there were birds, then some insects also came, and finally, the Rose Fairies arrived and settled around her. Did she have some sympathy for them? Naturally. That's why when the Thornstrides attacked, Lu Shu was ready to fight back together with the Rose Fairies. But even then, her mentality as a world tree never got compromised or changed. She just acted on the situation as it was the most profitable for her own safety. Placing her thoughts aside, Lu Shu focused on something she had wanted to do for a while: build a basic house. Basic house, F rank, a very basic structure that has enough rooms and space to make it habitable for one creature. The walls are somewhat sturdy and won't go down with common natural phenomena. Materials needed: Saplinewood X100 F rank, Sprout Hard X10 F rank, Budbark X1 F plus rank, Pebbleheart X100 F rank, Earthmud X100 F rank, Yellow Cotton F rank X10. System hint: if you want to create a basic house to house races of similar stature to Rose Fairy, you will need 40% of the materials, rounded up. Lu Shu read the system hint with curiosity. Rounded up? That means that, I need the bud bark still, not just a fourth of the bud bark. The materials needed were relatively easy to get. During these 2 months, Lu Shu used the corners the fairies created to ask for materials. Sadly, she couldn't ask for materials which they didn't have because they're WER, so she was still missing the bud bark. Still, the Rose Fairies were very diligent and had gathered enough materials. I have most of the materials, but similar to the weapon situation, Lu Shu was clueless about how to build a house. What size does it need to be? How should the rooms be aligned? How do I shape it? QEQ. Lu Shu was again stopped by the significant barrier known as knowledge. What to do? How do I even ask about this to them? Lu Shu knew some basic information about life, the system, and many more matters as a part of her instincts. But more technological issues were utterly out of her basic understanding. After thinking about it for a while, Lu Shu reached one conclusion that would lead to her getting the knowledge: wind to Floor until Floor understood what she wanted. And so she began. Floor, 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 floor. Floor. Come Floor, Floor, I want to build a hussy. Meanwhile, the Rose Fairy Queen's brain started throbbing as messages at the rhythm of a drum roll hit her one after another. This time, Floor was not lazing around, as many Rose Fairies had come with reports of nearby intelligent creatures appearing with increased frequency. This is important, but if I don't go to Lu Shu, my head might explode from all her calls. Floor looked back toward Lu Shu, who was around 60 meters away, and spoke, knowing that the world tree could easily hear her from there. I'm going. Stop calling me Lu Shu. I heard you. Her tone was helpless, yet pampering, like that of a mother to her young child. Lu Shu stopped calling her while giggling in her mind. It is so fun to see her face change. Ha ha ha. The Rose Fairies around Floor laughed as they teased her. Queen, how does it feel to take care of Lu Shu? Right. You are really similar to a mother now, huh? Floor's eyebrow twitched. A mother, who me? Clavel was also around and smirked. You wouldn't be cursing at me sometimes in your sleep for discovering Lu Shu, wouldn't you? Floor shook her head helplessly. You are all too mischievous. Now go. Send someone to inform Ignatia as well, although she probably has already realized the strangeness. She added with a serious tone, if you don't want to become the next ones to die, be careful of ambushes and be alert. The Rose Fairies nodded. Understood, Queen Floor. Floor turned around and flew toward Lu Shu, who was patiently waiting for her. Well, I'm here. What's wrong? The Rose Fairy Queen heard a sound and looked over only to see the lignified vault, a door being opened. Taking the cute quickly, she commented, Okay, hold it there, I'm going down. Lu Shu held the door until Floor entered, and having learned from her previous mistake when she almost chopped one root with the door closing, she slowly lowered it. Although it happened a few months ago, Floor naturally understood why Lu Shu was so gentle with the door and laughed. Are you afraid of getting hurt again, Lu Shu? Receiving a sincere yes from her reminded Floor that the world tree was still young and somewhat innocent. She couldn't help but sigh with a smile. We are lucky and somewhat unlucky as well. Between discovering a new or old world tree, there were advantages to both. Old ones were more likely to become guardians instead, while young ones could benefit entire races by growing together with them. Floor didn't know as much about this, but thanks to Verdantia providing some interesting books about world trees, she learned a few extra basic facts that she hadn't known before. Once inside the lignified vault, she looked over toward where the roots were pointed and was surprised to see a very large pile of materials. Around a fifth of every material inside the room was stacked in a large mound. Floor asked with a doubtful look, "So, what's this?" The fairy queen approached while floating down and began grabbing the materials one by one. "They're branches, flowers, rocks. What do you want to do with this, Lu Shu?" Lu Shu answered confidently, "A house." But the message was communicated similarly to gibberish, making Floor confused yet again. Floor rubbed her forehead. "How do I even do this? Think, what needs all this material? It is enough material to make a freaking house." Floor sighed, but as she sighed, her brain almost shut off as Lu Shu spammed her signals as if she had gone haywire. "Yes, Floor, you are so awesome. A house. A house. I want to build a hosusi. Waha. Floor is amazing." Floor this time almost got lightheaded for real. Wait. Lu Shu, stop. You are making me feel dizzy." Lu Shu stopped, but the happy mood radiating from the tree was easy to feel. Looking at the large stockpile, Floor muttered, "So, you want to make a house with these?" "HM," she asked. "Did you call because you wanted to tell me about, oh?" Floor paused as a feeling of déjà vu hit her. "You don't know how to build one, right?" A very confident and happy yes slammed into her brain. Floor's lips twitched. Well, being honest with one's ignorance is the first step toward becoming knowledgeable. Floor nodded. "Okay, I'll ask Verdantia about those things as well. I just hope she can get them like the rest." Floor learned from the fairy assigned to carry over the books that she couldn't keep them for too long. While Verdantia seemed willing to give them to them, they were, at the end of the day, books that taught people how to raise a world tree. While other books were not that relevant, she could get away with, "I put them on piles and never managed to find them." Books about world trees were something precious. Destroying, losing, or even damaging them was considered an act of vandalism. Floor rubbed her chin. "Perhaps I'll go in person another again. While I feel that Verdantia is strangely unstable, perhaps she will get better after a while." When Floor was about to go out, she noticed something at the corner of the room. It was not conspicuous or even exciting to look at. However, once Floor saw them, she rushed over while asking, "What's this, Lu Shu? Did you produce those weapons?" Our world tree looked over at what they asked and sent an affirmative signal. She wanted to create them when she was at level 4, so she did. Floor couldn't help but look into the stats. Level 4 Wind Leaf Amulet, basic grade, flawed level. Plus 40 ether mana. Ether plus 8. Windy Currents, active. Used to increase movement speed by 20% for a short 2-second duration. It can be used every 10 minutes or by using 10 ether mana. Level 4 Wind Leaf Amulet, basic grade, complete level. Plus 72 ether mana. Ether plus 12. Windy Currents, active. Used to increase movement speed by 20% for a short 2-second duration. It can be used every 10 minutes or by using 10 ether mana. There were 4 of the flawed kind and 1 of the complete kind. "When did you finish these?" "I didn't even notice." Floor looked at them with an awkward gaze. "I didn't remember I finished that." "Well, now she can have them, I guess." Floor looked at the stats and nodded. "Not bad, really not bad. Just the additional skill could be a lifesaver, not to mention the stats it gives." "Thank you, Lu Shu." Lu Shu giggled. "No problem, Floor." When Floor came out of the lignified vault, she saw a nervous rose fairy flying around and waiting for her. "Leader, we need help. The Thornstrides are back, but with many more creatures than ever." The rose fairy's anxiety was palpable, her voice trembling as she called out to Floor. Sensing the gravity of the situation, Floor turned to Lu Shu. "Lu Shu, I must leave immediately. Be prepared to defend yourself, if needed." Then, our world tree saw many rose fairies fly off her vision radius while Floor called the combatants and brought them out with her. Floor chose to leave Clavel and Zinnia behind since they were strong and influential enough to guide the rose fairies in case of an emergency. Clavel spoke aloud, calling all the rose fairies left behind. Come and gather around Lu Shu. It seems that this time, the situation is dire. Remember to follow our words and avoid getting too far away. The rose fairies gathered around, while Lu Shu looked at them with a pondering expression. I wonder if they will be able to fight this time. Four looked quite worried. As she thought about that, her world tree, caught movement, and she hastily focused on that area, trying not to be as noticeable as she was when looking at rose fairies. While World Tree Eye was a powerful skill, it also carried her presence. So, while observing creatures as a whole was possible to do relatively silently, when she focused on something, that creature would feel her gaze. World Tree Eye worked by manipulating the energy in the air to be transmitted through her roots and transformed into images. As a world tree, Lu Shu didn't really have a brain like a normal creature. Her entire body had the ability to think, while her world tree heart served as a place to keep her knowledge safe. In short, while the whole body had the capacity to process and hold information, World Tree Heart was the place that constituted Lu Shu's core. River beavers. Lu Shu focused and saw increasingly more creatures entering her detection range. Moreover, they just didn't come from one direction. While this tactic didn't work on her since she had 360-degree spherical vision, that was not the case for the rose fairies. Looking at Clavel's face, Lu Shu was quick to understand that she hadn't realized yet. She sent a message with the feeling of danger so that she would realize that something was wrong. Clavel was looking around when her brain was hit by a powerful energy wave that screamed danger to all her instincts. She was momentarily confused about why Lu Shu would do something like that, but her eyes widened as she realized. She shouted, "Quickly move toward the lignified vault. We are being attacked." Lu Shu was quick as well, opening the heavy door with her roots and allowing all level 4 and below rose fairies to rush inside. The rest stood outside. While the combatant rose fairies numbered less than 15, Clavel and Zinnia were wearing one of Lu Shu's amulets each. Moreover, they were the level 4 ones, increasing their strength a notch. Their ether mana reserves and attributes were equal to Amapola's, who was a level 9 creature 1 tier higher than them. Clavel and Zinnia were F-tier creatures, while Amapola was a level 9 F+ tier powerhouse. The amulet's ability to make them close to that was enough to leave Clavel and Zinnia with astounded expressions when they first wore them. But even with 2 Amapola-level rose fairies, their faces were not relaxed at all. The reason was that a larger-than-normal river beaver appeared. This creature's eyes were much sharper than the others, and its body felt strong at a glance. Clavel's face became ashen as she bit her lips. "Why is he here?" Lu Shu's Charm of the Seedling triggered. Charm of the Seedling has attracted a level 10 river beaver. Proficiency increased by 100. The World Tree's aura made a change as Lu Shu's entire being utterly focused on the task ahead. A level 10 was a threat that she had to take seriously, no matter how strong she currently was. Her mind sharpened, her processing speed increased, and when her entire attention was gathered, she became cold and threatening. Whoosh! All river beavers paused when the almost 7-meter-tall tree's aura released. A feeling of mortal danger overcame everyone as all creatures within Lu Shu's World Tree felt as if a superior beings had just opened above their heads. Some weaker beavers took a few steps back, looking up at the clear sky in fear. Clavel's eyes widened as well, because Lu Shu's aura was indiscriminate due to her lack of control. While she knew that Lu Shu was a friend in her mind, her body couldn't help but flinch and sweat coldly. Clavel, Zinnia, and the other rose fairies moved a bit away from her and turned around to look at the tree with flabbergasted expressions. Clavel stuttered. When did she become so strong? Zinnia commented with a solemn expression. Even with the amulet, I feel like I'm nothing but prey in front of her. The level 10 river beaver that appeared with an army of 40 other river beavers paused, his feelings of taking it easy disappearing right when the aura hit him. Unlike the Thornstride leader, this level 10 was not an intelligent one. While he was much cleverer than a typical beast, it was to the level of a smart dog. Moreover, while Lu Shu felt threatened, the level 10 beast had some pride in it. After all, it had lived as a king of the river for quite a few years already. It wouldn't be his first time fighting a relatively mighty tree. But just in the same way that he fought other trees, thinking he would win, he had no way of knowing that the one standing tall in front of him was none other than a sapling world tree. Clavel snapped out of her daze and hastily commanded, "Remain around Lu Shu. While she might look imposing right now, remember that she is a creature who has housed us for many months and given us all the berries you carry in the pouches. Trust in her." The rest of the rose fairies took a deep breath, and in a burst of trust, they all flew and floated by the currently imposing world tree. In the first seconds, they were terrified, but after not feeling any enmity from the prominent being, the feeling of Lu Shu completely changed, becoming extremely reliable and motivating. Zinnia smirked. "It feels as if Floor never left." Clavel grinned. 40 river beavers? TSK, TSK. They should have doubled the numbers. Right after, the level 10 river beaver made a sharp yet penetrating battle cry. All 40 beavers, the smallest the size of a large dog and the biggest being the level 10, looking like a small horse, rushed forward. Clavel shouted, "Focus on the high-level ones and weaken them. The low-level beavers can't hurt Lu Shu. Also, wait until Dashta." As Clavel ordered, the beavers entered Lu Shu's attack range. Willow strike, whoosh. A single branch tore through the air and flew like a powerful whip, landing on a level 7 river beaver. Bang! The creature's body literally burst into blood as its life ended in a single instant. After reaching level 4 and gaining the Sylvanium branch and Floor's pollination bonus effects, her physique stat had reached an absurd 73 points. Remember that creatures like that river beaver had around 9 physique stat points. The difference was abysmal. However, this didn't stop the massive creatures that were motivated by the level 10 river beaver. Lu Shu looked at them rushing at her with an extraordinarily cold mind. "Foolish. Creatures that come and attack me shall become nothing more than fertilizer." Her eyes locked on the level 10 river beaver, and her energy moved at once. "Feel regret." Willow strike. The level 10 river beaver managed to see the motion, but was too late to dodge cleanly. Bang! The branch ended up landing on the side of the beast, throwing it sideways for several steps as a large -624 appeared. This lowered the river beaver's forward body shard from 6524 to 5900. The eyes of the creature widened, not expecting to be hit from such a distance away. One could even see a clear gash appearing on the side of the beast that spewed blood. Angry, it tensed its limbs and lunged forward toward Lu Shu. Clavel saw that, and her lips arched further. Attack! All 15 rose fairies moved their ether mana and sent a wave of sharp wind blades toward the rushing creatures, aiming at the 5 level 8s and 2 level 9s. Sounds of their attacks colliding were heard, sung by the distinctive echo of flesh being cut. Clavel's and Zinnia's attacks landed on the same level 9, slicing around a quarter of their forward body shards. Lu Shu and the fairies shot a second volley, this time managing to score a few fatalities. The level 10 river beaver was ready for Lu Shu's attack, but being closer, dodging was much more challenging, and he got hit either way. He managed to dodge it somewhat, so it didn't land on any vital part, resulting in a smaller damage number of 502. Soon, the beavers crossed another landmark. Energy rushed from her roots and coiled upward, rushing through her trunk in a fantastical sight of pure raw power and enveloping a few of her branches. Then, Lu Shu activated Willow Strike Barrage. 8 branches independently moved as if they had a mind of their own and attacked the closest 8 creatures. Between them, the level 10 and 2 level 8s were present. All beavers tried to dodge, still without success. Bang! 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 7 bodies were instantly splattered on the ground, while the level 10 roared in pain as another 778 forward body shards were sliced off, leaving behind 2/3 of his entire forward body shard pool. However, all this effort paid off as it managed to close the distance enough to attack finally. Or so it thought. When he was about to lunge at the trunk and use his powerful teeth and claws, the floor before him burst in an explosion of dirt as roost covered in blue energy veins coiled around his entire body, holding him in place. This was Lu Shu's new root manipulation skill being used. Then, the level 10 river beaver felt fear for the first time as the same phenomenon that happened before repeated. Energy rushed from the ground toward the canopy of the world tree, and the river beaver could feel the utter disdain from the tree as the branches moved. Willow strike barrage. Bang. Dash 457. Bang. Dash 685. Bang. Dash 825. Bang. Dash 545. Bang. Dash 986. Bang. Dash 476. Bang. Dash 624. Bang. Dash 22. Congratulations on defeating River Beaver level 10. You've gained 35 experience points. While Lu Shu was engrossed in eliminating the level 10 threat, the Rose Fairies executed a cunning strategy. They managed to eliminate a level 8 adversary and inflict severe damage on a level 9. Their attacks, though not as potent individually, when used in succession, created lacerations that could cause a creature to bleed out rapidly. The depth of these wounds posed a challenge for healing, adding to the effectiveness of their strategy. That's why Rose Fairies were so dominant. Their attacks might not have been over the top in power, but the wounds they created were enough to make other creatures fear fighting them. Even if you won, the wounds they created could easily result in being lethal. Because of this and their lack of raw power, their attacks weren't strong enough to stop the avalanche of creatures from reaching Lu. The 20-plus creatures that were alive after Lu Shu's and the fairies' attacks lunged at Lu Shu like ravenous beasts, wanting to topple the tree before it killed them. The Rose Fairies saw how the beasts opened their mouths and attacked Lu Shu, and an uncontrollable rage boiled inside them. Filth of the forest, die. The Rose Fairies, driven by their burning anger, unleashed a barrage of spells. Their ether mana plummeted without control as wind blades rained down on the creatures, aiming for their necks. The attacks were primarily successful, slicing important veins and causing devastating hemorrhage. Meanwhile, Lu Shu was swarmed by more than 20 creatures, many teeth, claws, and other attacks, landing on her one after another. Notifications of damage appeared one after another, filling Lu Shu's mind with their sound. However, she wasn't rushed at any moment. While there were plenty of notifications, none of the attacks overcame 30 forward body shards. With her almost 4,000 forward body shards, despite the onslaught she was receiving, they were quite literally tickling her. In this small instant, when Lu Shu was finishing off level 10, she received a total of 400 damage. Her thick bark, reinforced by her 72 points of physique stat, was sturdy enough to completely block all attacks from level 5 and below river beavers. Not only was Lu Shu not affected by their initial attacks, but after scratching the surface of her body and not managing to do any more actual damage, some notifications of creatures dealing 0 points of damage appeared quickly. Once done with the main threat, Lu Shu's World Tree Eye focused on her immediate surroundings. Unlike those times when she cried in pain when she was hurt, this time her mind was crystal clear, and she completely ignored the painful sensations in order to focus even more. Cold, brutal, ruthless. A world tree that had been provoked would rarely give mercy to her enemies. Once her overpowering gaze landed on the creatures that the Rose Fairies were desperately trying to keep off her body, they couldn't help but freeze for a moment as the dreadful feeling of death enveloped their beings. Lu Shu sentenced them with an indifferent tone. Now that you've done your part scratching my bark die and become my sustenance. Willow Strike Barrage and Willow Strike were unleashed once more, consuming a decent part of her Anther mana and Anima energy reserves. At the same time, Root Manipulation also appeared, her enchanting roots bursting from the ground around her, while coiling like snakes around the beasts. The 3 skills were devastating and did quick work of the river beavers. More than one of them fell each second, making it a hellish-like moment for the river beavers. While their intelligence was not that high, seeing their fellow creatures smashed by the whip-like branches was terrifying. The rose fairies shot their skills enough that one of the weakest ones hit almost zero and suddenly lost strength as her eyes rolled and her brain shut down from lack of ether mana, causing her to fall from the air. The World Tree had cleaned house by then, leaving only 7 alive who were about to meet their doom. But, unlike what she expected, one of the beasts saw the rose fairy fall and didn't lose its chance. Lu Shu was focusing on the remaining 7 river beavers when she saw one of them jump upward and use her trunk as a springboard to attack the falling fairy. The movement was swift and took the other rose fairies by surprise. Clavel realized what was happening and wanted to rush forward to catch her, but she quickly realized that she was too late. Oh no! Her face twisted as she saw the river beaver's last struggle about to reach that falling fairy. But before she could despair more at the tragic outcome, a thin shadow appeared on top of the river beaver's head. Wah! Dash! Boom! Clavel saw how the Sylvanium branch of the World Tree descended with such strength that the creature shot down like a meteor and cratered into the ground in a burst of gore. The loud, explosive sound was like a cannonball being shot. Following that, Clavel and the other fairies felt the powerful ether mana pulse climb up the bark and gather on the leaves. Zinnia condemned with a mocking grin. Die for provoking a being you shouldn't. Several other branches lashed out toward the remaining river beavers and slaughtered them all in cold-blooded murder. Each branch sank deeply into the beast, slicing through their defenses as if they were nothing and bursting their internal organs. The last one was killed right as the falling rose fairy was caught by Clavel. Clave quickly maneuvered to avoid falling onto the ground and flew up, laying her on one of Lu Shu's inactive branches. One rose fairy shouted, her breath ragged. We won. Another one smiled tiredly. We did. I honestly didn't expect Lu Shu to be so powerful. All the other rose fairies similarly sprawled themselves all over Lu Shu's canopy, feeling extremely tired. Zinnia approached Clavel and asked, how is she doing? Why did she suddenly fall? Clavel shook her head. She has ether mana deficiency. Her ether mana hit 0, and she fainted. It will take a few days for her to wake up. Let's hope that the backlash from reaching 0 ether mana doesn't hit her. Zinnia commented, well, with Lu Shu's fruits, she will wake up much earlier, and chances for that are also very slim. Also, we should respect family members who risk their lives for the mission. She fought bravely. Clavel nodded and sighed frustratedly. What were these river beavers doing here? If it weren't for Lu Shu having leveled up recently, we would have been in real trouble. Zinnia looked down at the massacre and sighed. I don't know. However, knowing that the Thornstrides also attacked, or at least pretended to, right at the same time, it can't be a coincidence, right? Clavel nodded in agreement. I think you were right. Zinnia also noticed and asked quickly, HM, what's that sound? Clavel's face fell as she received another signal from Lu Shu, this time about danger. How is your ether mana doing? Zinnia smiled wryly. Does it matter? We have to fight even if we just throw stones at whatever is coming. Still, once they saw the people appearing, their determined faces faltered. What are humans and Sylvans doing here? Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, Flora arrived at the place where the reporting fairy had told her to go and saw a large group of creatures advancing. There were at least 400 beasts of many different species, making Flora falter about her original plans. I wanted to challenge and kill Flora quickly to make the beasts he has untied disappear, but Flora was hidden in the tree's canopies, using her tiny body to her advantage to observe from a safe distance. There is more than one level 10 plus speaking over there. If I were to go and challenge him, I would probably be hunted down until I become their trophies and experience points. Honestly, Flora felt helpless this time. Even if Ignatia and I join forces with Lu Shu, it probably is not enough. I've spotted around 6 level 10 plus creatures. There might be more hidden in the crowd, but it is too difficult to spot them. Analyzing a creature with the system required, first of all, knowing that creature somewhat or understanding the presence it gave off, and second of all, being close enough for your senses to pick it up. Floor didn't fulfill these requirements for all the level 10 creatures there. Hence, she couldn't tell the precise number of level 10s and above. Floor returned toward the small army of 80 she had gathered and looked at them with wry expressions. Not enough. Even if Ignatia's army had joined, we would probably not have been enough. Floor sighed and passed her hand through her red hair. This is really so frustrating. Should I call the river beavers and try to do a pact with them? Floor laughed in ridicule. Nah, I can't do this. How could I collaborate with those tree eaters? With another rueful sigh, she asked no one in particular. What should I do? Where and how do I find people strong enough to help? After speaking like that, she paused. Her face became strange. Do I really have to call that woman? But Floor was struggling. I really don't trust her. What kind of level 4 Sylvan does not flinch and is proactive when a level 12 monster is right in front of them? However, she really didn't have better options. Floor knew that she was strong, but strong enough to beat so many? She was far from it. I'll have to return quickly and made a plan to buy time to go to the city for Verdantia's help. Let's return. We can't do anything for now. Floor had never felt this cornered in her life, so she didn't really know what to do. The problem was that, unlike the typical attacks where they could flee, the being they were protecting was a stationary tree. The Rose Fairies followed her command and flew back toward their base, arriving a few minutes later. Floor's face changed completely when she saw the situation and rushed forward at her fastest speed. Who dares? The bloodstained Floor and the situation around Lu Shu were worrying to the point that the only reason she had not started throwing spells was that the humans and Sylvans that were facing off against the group of Rose Fairies were seemingly in a defenseless position. Some of them had their arms up in the air, while one of them was eagerly speaking something to Clavel. Clavel saw Floor arrive, and her face brightened. Finally, Queen, quickly tell these people to scram. They are crazy and want to analyze Lu Shu, her branches, and her fruits. This Sylvan, in particular, is strange. Floor looked at the Sylvan and human group, and between them, she spotted a peculiar one that reminded her of Verdantia. It was the Sylvan pointed at by Clavel as well. A fire ether Sylvan? After Cinderiel set off alone, she chose to go eastwards from Fortuna City. This was the most direct way of traveling toward the Golden Sap Forest. She walked through the streets with a marching rhythm, her steps neither hurried nor slow. She didn't take long to reach the wooden walls surrounding the city where a large gate was built. There was an open plaza with plenty of carriages of different sizes. Some carriages were pulled by animals, while others didn't have anything pulling them. Still, Cinderiel knew that those carriages were usually pushed through internal circuits. They were quite advanced pieces of technology, so Cinderiel didn't know much about them other than they could move without the help of beasts. Being a driver of those is complicated enough that only level 10s and above usually drive them. Of the tens of carriages in the large plaza, there were only 2 high-level ones. Cinderiel didn't have that much money, so she ambled toward one that looked affordable. As she approached, she had an idea. I can find a group that doesn't have to be high-level people and act as an escort for a while. I might even get paid instead of paying. Excuse me. A man who was resting while sitting on the side of the carriage heard a pleasant voice and looked over to its origin. He was dumbfounded as the gorgeous woman approached with a smile and a stature that was quite intimidating. Wow, tall. Also that hair color. A Sylvan? Didn't this Missy see that this is an all-human caravan? Well, let's answer and see what she wants. Hello. What do you need, beauty? Cinderiel grinned at the compliment and answered. Hello, gentlemen. I was thinking about going toward the Golden Sap Forest, but it would be my first time going. Therefore, I came to speak with you to ask if your group is going that way. If it is, I can act as a guard. The man's eyebrow raised. She's trying to get a free ride. Well, does she have what she needs to do so? I see. That would be interesting. There are almost never enough guards, haha. After a sincere laugh, he smiled with a shrewd look and asked, What level are you, Missy? I don't want to ask rude questions, but you look quite young. Cinderiel frowned and commented, Look, I can tell you that my primary stats is over 50. Not to mention, my destructive capabilities as a Sylvan who controls fire are superb in the offensive. My skill set should be enough even if level 10 monsters or bandits appear. The man rubbed his bearded chin and commented, "Is your level so low that you can't tell us?" Cinderiel crossed her arms and looked at him. "While it is indeed low, I've just told you that my stats are not low at all. Any level 9, as long as they're not wearing something crazy as equipment, is not my opponent. I have 3 pieces of basic rank equipment, 2 of them at flawless levels as well. I can also tell you that I'm Sylvan, and I have unlocked transformation." When the man and those behind her heard the last sentence, their eyebrows raised in surprise. "You've unlocked that pre-level 10? Seeing their looks change that much, not at all the other things, but the fact that she had unlocked her transformation confused her. While it was true that level 6 was almost the fastest that a Sylvan could get when unlocking that inborn skill, she had seen other Sylvans do the same. This fact was like telling her that it wasn't that special. However, what Cinderiel didn't know was that 99% of Sylvans failed to unlock it before level 15. In contrast, those Sylvans that unlocked it below level 10 were nothing but a fraction of the general populace of Sylvans. Most of that extra 1% were Sylvans who unlocked it between level 10 and 15. Hence, Cinderiel, who thought that the other things were much more important, was confused by their reaction and nodded unknowingly. "Yes, it is true. What's wrong?" The man changed his tone and smiled genuinely. "You are welcomed into our sunflower caravan. No need to pay for the trouble or act as a guard. Just be sure to use our services in the future, Missy." Cinderiel blinked twice, her orange-colored eyes showing clear confusion. Seeing the previously cool, calm, and confident woman show such a clueless expression made the caravan leader and the others behind him laugh. Cinderiel snapped out of her daze and protested. "Hey, what are you laughing at?" The caravan leader laughed one last time before coughing and becoming serious. "Sorry, Missy. It won't happen. Also, I have Missy's name." Cinderiel pondered and commented, "Just call me Cinder. What's your name?" The caravan leader grinned and commented, "I'm called Lart. The ones behind are Ares, Doles, Melee." Lart presented the people behind him one by one, a total of 15 people. There were more, but the rest were customers. Caravan work was diverse as it took her time to transport both people and goods. Moreover, if the caravan was strong enough, cities asking them to exterminate some troublesome creatures was not that uncommon. Because of culture and the existence of world trees, almost the entire planet's lithosphere was covered in forests and tight but protected roads connected different civilizations. These roads were treaded by caravans that knew the routes, and fees were to be paid. Traveling alone was not against any rules, but coming into contact with certain beasts or lacking strength during the travel could lead to a graveless death. Speaking of graves, the way people buried others was interesting, as the objective of the current culture was becoming one with nature after death. Hence, most people had the tradition of burying their loved ones below trees, gardens, or other places where nature would slowly decompose and assimilate them. Hence, a graveless death was usually considered one where the corpse couldn't be retrieved. In the most objective sense, being eaten in the wild by monsters was the same as what people did. However, the emotional value and sentiment of a creature's desire to grieve their deceased was prevalent even in this world's culture. Still, thanks to the returning to nature culture, those who approached a natural death didn't fear it as much. The habit of looking at things as part of a more significant cycle was prevalent. This naturally didn't take away from the fact that people feared non-natural deaths. I digress. Lart commented as she saw Cinderiel walk toward the front. "Are you really that eager to participate as a guard?" Cinderiel scratched her cheek. "More than eager. I still don't understand why the change in attitude. The only reason I'm even coming without suspecting you is because of that." Cinderiel pointed at a symbol on the carriage's side, an honor badge from the Explorer Association. These were only given to groups that had committed no felonies for 100 missions and upheld morals. In short, Someone with this mark was considered trustworthy. Lart laughed. Well, I guess it's expected to be confused. However, I can tell you that the fact that you can transform so young and early is better than you being able to fight level 15 or higher creatures. Cinderiel nodded, keeping it in mind, but she didn't continue asking. I'll ask Teacher Isla when I come back. Lart looked around and shouted in a deep tone. If everyone is gathered, start preparing because we are departing in 1 hour. Those who are not ready by then won't be missed. Cinderiel saw someone with a list approaching and whispering something into Lart's ear. The man nodded and then spoke aloud again. We are departing in 2 hours. Sorry for the delay. Everyone present will receive a 3% discount or pay rise for this travel. Oh, what made his attitude change so abruptly? Well, I'll have to wait to know. After 1.5 hours passed, Cinderiel could see Lart's feet tapping the ground quickly and impatiently. They're not here yet? Quite a way to make people wait. She could see that most people in the group were showing dissatisfaction in some way, which made the atmosphere quite tense. After 10 more minutes, a group of people approached with slow steps. Cinderiel looked over, and her face became solemn. Strong. Lart didn't seem to care much, though. He approached and spoke with a clearly restrained tone. Lord, can you speed up? We are already half an hour late from our departure. The man smiled. What's with this attitude and all this haste? Half an hour late is nothing. Stop complaining about such small things. Lart held back from slapping his face with all his being and turned around without looking while shouting. We are leaving. Cinderiel walked toward the front, only to be interrupted. Oh, miss, are you the only Sylvan in this caravan? Turning around, Cinderiel saw the man who had arrived late approaching her with a broad and handsome smile. Cinderiel answered with a cold and somewhat sneering tone, without registering his handsomeness or anything similar. It seems that you have eyes. One of the guards placed his hand on the hilt of the sword, but Lart stopped him. If you draw that sword, I don't care if the person you're protecting is important or not. You will have to search for another caravan. The man looked at him with disdain, but he retreated for now, leaving one sentence behind. Well, miss, if you want to talk, call me later. Cinderiel ignored him and walked toward the front. Feeling another person approaching, Cinderiel had to consciously stop her face from twisting with annoyance. Hello, is this your first caravan? The woman who approached had a reassuring and refreshing smile. Like the rest, she was human. However, her height was a bit short for a human woman. Cinderiel was more than a head taller than her, forcing her to look down to talk with her. The woman, looking up, smiled wider. What a stupid face. Of course, she didn't say it aloud and commented. I'm focusing on the guard duty. Can you leave me alone for a few minutes? The woman laughed. Don't worry. Nothing happens around these areas. I've traveled with this sunflower caravan a few times, and these locations are usually safe and worry-free. Look, Cinderiel moved her gaze in the direction she was pointing at, only to see a man sleeping by the side of the carriage driver's seat. Her eyebrow couldn't help but twitch with annoyance. Should I have come alone? As Cinderiel was traveling, their caravan approached the wilderness. It was a dirt path with clear wheel traces and footprints, created by people with innate affinities for manipulating dirt, earth, rocks, and similar materials in general. The state of the road was a stark contrast to the untamed wilderness that surrounded it. It was solid-looking and firm, meticulously tended, with clear lines that separated the road from the natural, wild expanse. As the caravan trod the path at a gentle pace, Cinderiel talked with the woman who approached her. So, Cinder, if that's even your real name, ha ha ha, how does it feel to be a Sylvan? Cinderiel looked at her as if she were stupid. What kind of question is that? Miss Ariel, I recommend that you don't speak nonsense. Ariel smirked. So scary. So? You can't give an answer? Cinderiel rolled her eyes and looked forward. Who could? It's not like I know how a human feels about things. The only things that I know are different between us for certain is our system, innate affinities, lifespan, and our look on the world's beings. Ariel lifted her eyebrow. What do you mean with that last one? Cinderiel spoke flatly. You don't perceive the flora's beauty past its superficial appearance. Ariel paused and asked, Are you speaking about tree-loving? Cinderiel gave her a side-eye. That's a disrespectful way of putting it. Ariel laughed again and asked with a smirk. What's the respectful way of putting it then, miss? Don't act stupid. You could say love for trees, appreciation of flora, interest in nature, and many more. Cinderiel sighed. Well, it's not like you can understand. Ariel nodded. That's true. I just can't seem to understand what you see in trees or other plants. What is it that attracts you, Sylvans, to such creatures who, most of the time, can't even properly communicate? Cinderiel shook her head. It's not about appearance, Ariel. Do you think Sylvans would get together with humans at all if we were speaking about appearances? Human males are not exactly attractive except for a small minority. Even intercourse is not as pleasant from the accounts of most Sylvans. Cinderiel concluded. We, Sylvans, look further into their beings and feel the connection with our partner-to-be. We focus on the feeling and understanding of the target's nature. Ariel wanted to ask more, but Cinderiel lifted her hand. No need to discuss further. Do you want anything else? Ariel shook her head and sighed. I actually do. Well, the leader asked me to communicate with you because he felt that talking with a woman would be easier for you. Can I ask for your objective in going out of the city this time? Cinderiel had nothing to hide since the mission she took to investigate was very common. With just that information, the existence of her Sylvan quest wouldn't be discovered. Yes. Cinderiel nodded and continued. There were a few missions regarding the investigation of the Golden Sap Forest. It seems that creatures have been moving strangely recently, so the higher-ups are fearful of a beast tide happening. My current objective is to see if I can find any indications of the tide happening. Ariel realized and sighed with a troubled look. What's wrong? Hearing Cinderiel's question, Ariel commented. Well, if a beast tide is really about to happen, our business will take quite a hit. Caravan traveling is usually the most prosperous and safe during peaceful times. It is true that during war times or dangerous moments, the profits increase. However, so does the risks. Cinderiel could understand. There was a high chance of being asked to carry out dangerous jobs if there were emergencies. Being emergencies, they would be paid generously. However, it was during these perilous times that risks increased. If, for example, someone didn't want you to deliver something, they could send people to get you. While Cinderiel thought of these matters, the caravan advanced quite deeply through the path. Ariel spoke with her. We are about 4 hours away from reaching the Golden Sap Forest. Cinderiel nodded as she sat in one of the carriages, holding her staff between her arms and leaning on the side of the open door. This is quite peaceful. The sound of the beast's feet touching the ground and reaching her ears was accompanied by the clatter of the items around her making sound, creating a peculiar atmosphere. There was sudden movement at the roadside, alerting the guards. Soon, without much of a warning, a group of people wearing dark robes appeared on the roadside. Cinderiel frowned and quickly looked around, trying to check their systems. However, as she checked, Cinderiel saw a flash of light and quickly dodged to the right. Right after she moved, an arrow with a white aura shot right where her forehead was. This precision. They are not normal bandits. With the first attack shot, the entire place got heated up as everyone lunged at each other. Cinderiel lifted her staff, and her ether mana surged crazily as plumes of fire surrounded her. Then she waved it, and several fireballs streaked across the air, landing on distant enemies between the bushes. Ariel saw that and asked, worried, "Do you want to light the entire forest in flames?" Cinderiel spun her staff and lifted it, creating one bigger ball of pure fire and shooting it again. Boom! An enormous fire explosion swallowed a large area as numbers of damage flooded her vision. Ariel looked on with a speechless look, not understanding what motivation Cinderiel had. Aren't Sylvans allies of nature? This can, huh? Ariel stopped herself from speaking after the flames subsided, revealing an intact patch of forest that had been damaged by just the explosion's burst and not the flames. Cinderiel spoke flatly. My flames naturally don't burn plants if I don't want. Ariel's lips twitched as she took back 2 steps to dodge an incoming sword strike. Naturally, of course, Naturally, fire doesn't burn plants. How silly of me. Cinderiel sent a fireball behind Ariel, hitting a bandit who was trying to sneak attack her. Focus. While Cinderiel fought, she saw that 2 of the 30 bandits were rushing straight at her. She looked at them quickly and managed to see their level and ternary essences. Level 8. Ether Mana Shards. 1345/1605. Foer Body Shards. 1,520 of 1,800. Anima Energy Shards. 1498/1584. Level 9. Ether Mana Shards. 892/1054. Foer Body Shards. 2901/3358. Anima Energy Shards. 945/990. Then, with a quick glance, she checked hers. Ether Mana Shards. 4,921 of 5,363. Foer Body Shards. 2847/2847. Anima Energy Shards. 2650/2847. With practiced motions, Cinderiel unsheathed her sword on her waist while spinning her staff and placing on her back. The level 8 approached first, using a complex footwork that made his body blurry. Cinderiel snorted and stomped the ground. While lifting her leg, fire energy gathered around her leg, and after her foot powerfully landed, it created a loud, explosive sound. Boom! The level 8 thought that it was just an intimidation tactic, so he didn't react much. However, what surprised him was seeing Cinderiel's body using the counter force from the explosion to launch herself forward while thrusting her sword. His face changed to one of horror as he realized that he couldn't dodge. Thankfully for him, his partner was much sharper and managed to react, swinging his own short sword toward the path Cinderiel's body was taking. With inhuman reactions, Cinderiel stomped the ground with her other foot, sending herself sideways and dodging the incoming sword strike. Her ability to react was primarily due to her blaze leaf robe, which gave her a passive skill that decreased her reaction time by 10%, making her motion vision ridiculously detailed. However, Cinderiel didn't stop there, as after spinning her body in a very precise way, she quickly created another burst, lunging at the level 8 from a tricky angle at an incredible speed. What? The level 8 certainly didn't expect such a movement that almost defied the laws of inertia. However, he had no time to mourn as Cinderiel's blazing orange eyes were locked on his neck. Cinderiel shouted, "Die!" The bandit screamed back as he used his all to move the sword. "You wish." Boom! The collision of swords was followed up by a massive fiery explosion created by Cinderiel. 312. Cinderiel clicked her tongue. Too shallow. Her back felt chilly as her senses warned her, but it was too late. The one to die is you. Reacting as fast as she could, she summoned a ball of fire on her back and exploded it. Bang! The blast threw her body forward, allowing her to dodge the sword. However, she did around 200 damage to herself with that attack. The level 9 that almost got her frowned and quickly followed. Even if she has thrown herself forward, she is destabilized. I can still finish her off. Cinderiel's mind quickly analyzed her situation, and she gritted her teeth. Should I use it now? But if I do, I won't have it for the exploration. Still, she didn't have to worry as Ariel appeared and blocked the strike coming at her with a loud metallic sound. Ariel smirked. Hey, Almighty Sylvan, need help? Cinderiel didn't lose a single second as she spun her sword 3 times and created a spiral of flames that rushed forward. About time that you came. Ariel wanted to roll her eyes, but she was exchanging blows with level 9 and couldn't get distracted. Felling the heat coming from her back, she sidestepped right as a flame spiral brushed past the place where she stood before. Huh, that will miss dash. Boom. The attack exploded mid-air, hitting the similarly confident level 9 at the side. 406. Ariel grinned. Not bad. Then, both women started battling by each other's side, quickly shaving off the foer body shards of the level 8 and level 9. After a few exchanges back and forth, Cinderiel managed to spot an opportunity and rushed forward. After Ariel dodged the attack from the level 8. She lowered her body while spinning in place to release a powerful swipe kick that hit true. The acceleration of her leg lifted the level 8's feet off the ground, and Cinderelle took the chance. Die! Her sword descended, piercing his chest, and then Cinderelle ruthlessly exploded flames inside his chest. 1054. The man's insides expanded as his eyeballs almost popped out comically. Of course, the result was not comical at all. Congratulations on defeating Shadow Feet Human Level 8. You've gained 10 experience points. With the level 8 dead, the level 9 hesitated for a second before looking around. We are losing? Huh. What is that? The place he looked over to was where the handsome man stood. His bodyguard at the side took out a giant mace and swung it in a descended arc toward an approaching level 7. Bang! The loud sound echoed on the battlefield, forcing many to look over at the absolutely raw results of the attack that turned the attacker into a pulp. The handsome man who was being protected smirked. Quite an interesting thing. This is my first time receiving a bandit attack. Cinderelle and Ariel saw the level 9 pausing and then turning around to flee, confusing them. Looking over to the place the bandit was looking, their lips twitched as their food almost climbed up from their stomach to say hello. Ariel said after gagging once. Ugh, no wonder he fled. Cinderelle's lips were twisted. Cinderelle learned that the attack was a planned ambush to rob the caravan by hearing the conversations from afar. They weren't really trying to hide it either way, so Cinderelle gladly listened. It seemed that they weren't random bandits as well. Instead, they were a group named Void Witherwood, who had increased their activities in this area lately. Void Witherwood was a group of outcasts who committed several atrocities to become stronger. They were one of the factions that taught that the system's ability to grant experience for killing was a call and a message, so most of their training was related to killing. There were rumors that they could also teach energy gathering methods related to killing. Interestingly, Cinderelle learned that lately, they've suddenly increased their activities in this area because something seemed to have gone wrong. This information came from the handsome man who had tried to approach her before leaving. How does he have that information? Perhaps. Is he the reason we were actually attacked? Was the attack aimed at him? The moment his bodyguard showed formidable strength, they left at once as if they had confirmed something. She chose not to participate in the conversation and listen along the way. Time went by quickly, and the place where she was going to separate from the caravan was getting close. Finally, the golden sap forest. I wonder what will I find inside. There have been a few more assaults from beasts during the journey, but nothing difficult or intense. The most danger Cinderelle went through was the bandit fight that almost halved her ether mana reserves. I hope that this doesn't affect my exploration too much. Ariel, the woman who had been quite actively talking with her, approached with a smile and a wave of her hand. Cinder, will you leave soon? Cinderelle nodded at her. After fighting together, they had come a bit closer, so Cinderelle was willing to explain. Yes, I need to complete the mission soon since it is quite important. Honestly, I'm a bit worried now that I have a bit more than half my ether mana reserves. But I think I can do it. I've researched, and the highest tiered creature in this forest besides trees has an F+ rank tier. Level 10s and above are also scarce and have cleared territories. As long as I avoid those, I'll be fine. Ariel agreed with her analysis, but added something. What you say is right. However, what do you think about me and the others accompanying you? Cinderelle blinked, confused. Why would you do that? For your information, I won't share the bounty. Ariel chuckled. Don't worry, we aren't aiming for it. To be honest with you, it's a bit low even if we got it somehow. Ariel answered honestly. We also have some things to search for in the Golden Sap Forest. At first, we were planning on going to the other city and gathering a person good with plants, a Sylvan if possible. Still, since you've appeared, it's an opportunity I'm unwilling to pass on. Cinderelle finally realized why Ariel had approached her and had been so good-natured. She lifted her elegant eyebrow and asked, Oh, so you approached me because of that? Ariel shrugged. Don't get me wrong. I do like you, and now I'm sincerely offering cooperation. Cinderelle crossed her arms, looking down at the petite woman. Yes, but your initial intentions weren't that sincere. Ariel snorted and acted cutely, something the Sylvan thought suited her quite well. With her glasses and bob-cut hair, she looked pretty cute for an average-looking woman. Don't be like that. Haven't we fought a life-and-death battle together? We are friends now. Cinderelle answered flatly. Oh, Ariel's lips twitched, and she coughed to relieve the awkwardness, returning to normal. So, do you accept? Should I? Both my Sylvan quest and regular quest are about exploring, so it shouldn't be a problem if I do so with other people. On the contrary, I've seen them fight, and I know a bit about their strength. While they're powerful, if I were to use my innate skill, escaping shouldn't be a problem. After pondering for a while, long enough to make Ariel a bit restless while waiting for an answer, Cinderelle finally agreed. Okay, you can come with me. However, let me make it clear that if there is even the slightest suspicion, I will not hold back from separating. Ariel's tense expression relaxed as a sincere smile spread on her face. Perfect. I'll call my partners. Cinderelle looked at how the woman skipped away and shook her head. I'm quite younger, but it really doesn't feel like that. She walked toward the caravan leader and commented, Mister, I'm separating here. The man turned around and grinned. Little Sylvan, thanks for your help back then. Here. Cinderelle saw the man take out a small leather pouch with something inside and extend it to her. She took it and asked, What's this? Compensation, huh? The man saw Cinderelle's surprised look and laughed. You've helped a bunch, so just take it. It's not that much. Cinderelle looked between the pouch and him a few times and finally nodded. Thank you. I'll always take into account your caravan for future needs. The man nodded with a satisfied smile. That's good, Missy. Good luck. Ariel arrived at this moment. Yo, we are leaving with her to do that thing. The man snorted. Sure. Go on and leave this old man alone. A person behind him shouted jokingly. Leader, did we become invisible now? You are ruthless. The man snorted. Shut up and pay attention. What if we are ambushed again? The people around laughed merrily. Cinderelle took her belongings, and when the caravan passed through a forest patch that was not as thick, she jumped down, and another 4 people followed behind her. There were 3 men and Ariel. Well, let's go. They all nodded and dove into the deep expanse of forest, not knowing that their findings would be much more than they ever expected. As they walked deeper into the forest, their nerves tensed. Every sound that appeared around her grabbed their attention, thinking that a beast or something similar would appear from the nearby shrubs. Cinderelle was much more relaxed than the 4 humans. Her innate titles and skills as a Sylvan helped her feel at home while walking through the forest. As she walked, she spotted quite a few plants that were ready to harvest. However, she didn't do so, as her backpack space was very limited and not really suitable for storing harvested plants. Ariel asked in a hushed tone, Cinder, where are we going? Cinderelle shrugged. Who knows? Let's find traces of beasts and follow them. I need to find traces of a beast hide or something similar, so I should go where most creatures are gathering. Ariel was speechless. Cinderelle asked back, What's your objective? Ariel paused and commented, Investigate the reason for increased deaths during this last period of time. The mortality rate has jumped high enough that it has become an emergency, and that's not quite good. Cinderelle asked, Human mortality or Sylvan mortality? Ariel frowned a bit. Does it matter? Cinderelle nodded. If it is just human mortality, you can't really avoid considering flora. But if too many Sylvans have died, then it is quite clear that the origin of such events is a beast or something that isn't affected by Sylvan's natural aura. Ariel's eyes widened a bit, and then her face gained an embarrassed expression. Sorry, Cinderelle waved her hand. Don't worry. It is true that we Sylvans have a tendency to separate ourselves from others. Then she added, Not without reason, though. Ariel and the other 3 didn't comment. One of the men, a tall and slender one with an athletic body, asked, Cinder, well, can I call you like that? Cinderelle nodded. Go ahead. I have no problem with being called by my name. The man smiled a bit. Well, I was wondering, how are you going to create proof of whatever you find here? Do you have one of those expensive recording devices? Cinderelle shook her head. I'll just report what I see sincerely. If they don't believe it, that's on them. I'll receive my pay when my words are confirmed in either case, so it doesn't matter. Another man asked, what if things change by the time you take to return and present the information? Cinderelle shrugged. As I said, I'll inform them honestly. If they play games, I'll report them to my teacher. Ariel lifted her eyebrow. Oh, quite interesting. What is interesting? Ariel smirked. You have so much confidence in your teacher. Cinderelle nodded. Have you heard the name Island Neoflora? Their eyes widened. No way. She is your teacher. She is one of the strongest Sylvans in Fortuna City, right? I think she might be the strongest. Nah, that's a bit of an exaggeration. TSK. Are you sure? Cinderelle asked with a strange expression. Weren't you all super tense just a few moments ago? What are you shouting about? Ariel and the others became embarrassed and coughed. Cinderelle asked as she finally found some beast traces. Is this your group's first mission? Ariel snorted. What do you mean? We are veterans, all right. Cinderelle snorted back. Then it isn't showing. How about acting a bit more as such? Ariel pointed northeast from their position and voiced. That way, if you want to find a group of beasts. Cinderelle's eyes widened in pure stupefaction. You can't expect me to believe you. Ariel smirked. Suit yourself. One of the men coughed. Cinder, I recommend listening to her. She has good instincts and sight. She has probably spotted traces. Cinderelle looked at them skeptically, but decided to trust them for once. If you're incorrect, I won't listen to your calls again. Ariel rolled her eyes. Are you that confident that you won't make wrong judgments? If we apply your logic, nobody will listen to anyone by the end of the day. Cinderelle got silent this time, as Ariel's words were reasonably certain. Well, at least, I'll ask the reasons for your decision in detail. Ariel easily agreed to her conditions. They followed in the direction Ariel pointed at, and, as she said, they managed to find quite a few traces. Ariel explained. The vegetation in this area was clearly stomped, so that means quite a few creatures moved through here. Cinderelle frowned. Perhaps the beast tide is a real threat? One of the men commented. We'll have to continue investigating. Their group followed the traces, and soon, they heard a large group of creatures moving through the forest. With stealthy steps, they discovered hundreds of beasts moving at once in a specific direction. Moreover, there were quite a few different races. This can't be a good sign. Cinderelle and her group stood a distance away from the beast group and followed with silent steps. They wanted to check if more beasts would join in the way. Based on her extensive research, Cinderelle was well aware that a beast tide was a phenomenon triggered by the primal instincts of the creatures. Sensing the impending doom of a natural disaster, they would all, without exception, move in a single, unified direction. While fleeing, beasts usually become much more aggressive toward anything blocking their way. And because of the group's group mentality that was born, the ones in the front were pushed to go forward, making them look like unintelligent beasts that just threw themselves at city walls and other kinds of defensive structures built by creatures. However, unlike that feeling of unity that beast tides gave, Cinderelle realized that these creatures were marching together, but their steps were not rushed at all. It was orderly, and their groups were mixed but separated. Ariel whispered, "What do you think, Cinder?" Cinderelle was about to speak when the group of river beavers stopped and separated, turning right and going in a completely different direction. This solidified Cinderelle's conjecture that this was not the signals of a tide, but a group formed from different beasts for an unknown objective. A young-looking man with a slim body called Doles, one of the three men accompanying them, asked, "Do we follow them?" His brother, a very similar-looking man called Melee, asked with a weird expression, "Why will we follow them? Are you stupid?" Doles snorted. "Hey, aren't we investigating? Knowing why that group separated might bring us unexpected results." Ariel looked at the brothers and commented, "Can you two be more silent? What would we do if those hundreds of beasts heard us?" Cinderelle commented, "Let's follow." Ariel was surprised. "Are we really going to?" Cinderelle looked at her and nodded. "Why not? Moreover, from what I've seen, there is only one level 10 in that group. They are strong, but nothing we can't deal with. Robert, The third man walking with them asked with a serious tone, "Are you sure you want to do this, Missy?" Looking at the man who looked well into his 50s but had a strong body, Cinderiel decided to ask, "What do you recommend, sir?" Ariel complained, "Hey, why are you so respectful to him and not me?" Resisting the urge to roll her eyes, she answered with a sigh, "He is probably double your and triple my age. He is an experienced person who is alive at this job, even after so many years. So listening to his advice is something we must do." The man smirked and patted her shoulder. "Don't worry, Missy. I was just going to say that if we do go that way, we need to do so by their traces and not by keeping them in our visual range." Cinderiel asked, "Why is that?" The man explained while rubbing his bearded chin. "Well, if we can see them, that means that they can see us as well. While we will be hidden, all it takes is one misstep to create an unavoidable situation where we need to fight." The other four found his reasoning logical, so they all chose to follow his words. Without much trouble, they were able to follow the River Beavers group's footprints. It took around 2 or 3 hours before they suddenly heard battle sounds in the distance. Meili frowned. "Battle? The sounds don't feel human-like." Cinderiel looked around with a strange expression. "Why am I getting restless? I feel like I want to charge forward and rush to the center of this grove." She focused on her surroundings, and a strangely enticing aura made her body restless. Robert and Ariel found out about Cinderiel's strangeness, and Ariel quickly asked, "What's wrong, Cinder? Remember that we came here with you because of your sylvan senses. Are you feeling danger?" "No." She shook her head, saying with a thoughtful expression, "On the contrary, I feel eager. It's bizarre, as if there is something calling me right ahead." The four humans looked at the Sylvan with a strange expression, not knowing how to react to such words. Doles asked, "Is your head well, Oof?" Meili's slap on the back of his head choked his voice, forcing a strange sound out. "What are you saying so directly? You need to ask politely, even if she's going crazy, Oof." With a very similar motion, Ariel slapped the other brother on the back of his head. She spoke with her lips twitching. "Do you two share the same neuron, or something? Is that why you are incapable of simple thought?" Robert sighed. "Don't mind these two, Missy. What's in your mind?" The sounds of battle continued, and when Cinderiel was about to answer, the sound of a solid item slamming on a fleshy body with brutal strength spread from the covered middle of the grove. Ariel's face grimaced. "That sound," Cinderiel commented. "Let's wait until the battle ends and then walk in." Doles answered with a very unwilling tone. No. Are you not hearing all the harsh sounds of the things battling inside? I think those river beaver have met disaster while walking in that direction. You want to follow their same fate." Cinderiel answered flatly, not even bothering to play with him. "I'm going. If you want to follow, good. If not, you can turn around and leave." The others blinked at her decisiveness. Ariel muttered with a sigh. Where has the taking advice from others more experienced gone to? As they approached, their group finally entered Lu Shu's Charm of the Seedling skill range. As if Cinderiel had crossed some sort of membrane, her feelings went entirely out of control. The feeling from Charm of the Seedling was like an all-encompassing hug that warmed up her body. It was as if she had been freezing until now, and finally, after being exposed to heat, she realized it. Her heartbeat increased, thumping against her chest as blood flowed through her veins, spreading this strange heat throughout her entire body. That was not all. As her body heated up because of the heartbeat, a rush of excitement ran through her veins and blood. The four humans felt this strange aura change, but it wasn't much of a difference from them. When they heard Cinderiel's confident steps abruptly stopping, they looked sideways at her in confusion. Ariel got scared and asked with urgency, "See, Cinder, why are you breathing so roughly? I can feel your heartbeat from here," and her nose twitched a few times, making her feel strangely embarrassed. "You're spreading some kind of floral scent. Control yourself." Cinderiel, however, was not hearing her. Her mind was in absolute shock. Impossible. Here? How could it be here? Cinderiel spoke to herself with completely jumbled thoughts, not knowing how to react. Am I wrong? Am I being deceived by some tricky creature? No, but it feels as if this aura is impossible to misinterpret. Cinderiel's mind continued running in circles. But it's just too big of a coincidence. What am I supposed to do now? This aura is certainly similar to that one I felt when I was young. Cinderiel had always thought that even if she managed to find this aura, it wouldn't be the correct one. After so many years, how could she, a child back then, remember something like an aura so clearly? To be honest, Cinderiel was prepared to give up many decades of her life just to find something that felt right. And if she found nothing, she would give up and try to search for happiness somewhere else. Of course, this thought was just that, a thought. She had never been sure if she would be able to let go of such a profound and deep-rooted feeling. It had been just a glance, and it carried over years without any difficulty, making romance of any kind a lost cause even before it had the chance to start. Cinderiel felt a hand landing on her shoulder, snapping her out of her thoughts, and she looked sideways with her orange eyes glowing with a strange light and a gentle blush on her face due to the accelerated heartbeat. "What's wrong, Ariel?" Ariel took a step back involuntarily. The sensation Cinderiel's current eyes gave was utterly different from usual. It was deep and covered by a mysterious veil. What was strange was that they had a visible glow, making it feel like the colors inside her iris were swirling. The three men also got alert, looking at Cinderiel with serious expressions. Ariel gulped and asked, Are you okay? You look different." Cinderiel smiled, her red cheeks looking extremely attractive, as if her body used everything to become alluring and appealing. "Don't worry. Let's go quickly." And with that, they all saw Cinderiel rushing out of the grove. Meanwhile, by Lu Shu's side, Clavel was flying and looking at the several corpses created by Lu Shu's attack. Some of them are in quite a bad state to skin them for their coat." Zinnia looked at her and asked, confused, "Why do you want their skin?" Clavel shrugged. "Queen Floor told us that we can sell it to Sylvans and other creatures, and selling them will usually avoid an attack." Zinnia tilted her head. "Why?" Clavel pondered and commented, "Perhaps because the river beaver has a natural ability to repel water, so it is a nice cloth." Zinnia was about to answer when the shrubs by the side moved, and a tall woman appeared. Her stature, coupled with her neat red-colored hair and orange eyes, accentuated her fiery aura and glamorous body. The fairies that saw Sylvan appear weren't that nervous. While Sylvans and Rose Fairies weren't considered even in the same category, they were good for cooperating. This time, though, they weren't leisure. Clavel knew that Lu Shu had just gone through a tough battle, and her ability to defend had taken a hit. Clavel pondered, is this that ambush they were expecting? Or another group altogether? Clavel moved forward and summoned a pair of wind blades. "Stop!" Focusing on her face, not only Clavel but the rest of the Rose Fairies couldn't help but frown. The red-haired and orange-eyed Sylvan was looking at Lu Shu as if nothing else mattered in this world. Her face, full of adoration and fascination, couldn't probably be faked even by the best of actors. The raw emotion in her eyes was enough to make a few Rose Fairies feel strangely intimidated. Clavel didn't really know how to react to a Sylvan that rushed at them without any protection whatsoever. Zinnia realized that Cinderiel was really not that high level, making it much more strange. How did a level 6 enter here alone? Lu Shu had been dazed, looking at the notifications from the almost 35 river beavers she had killed. "Congratulations on defeating River Beaver Level 5. You've gained 1 experience point, X15. Congratulations on defeating River Beaver Level 6. You've gained 2 experience points, X9. Congratulations on defeating River Beaver Level 7. You've gained 3 experience points, X5. Congratulations on defeating River Beaver Level 8. You've gained 4 experience points, X4. Congratulations on defeating River Beaver Level 9. You've gained 6 experience points, X1. Congratulations on defeating River Beaver Level 10. You've gained 35 experience points, X1. Really nice, so much experience. Hee hee. Then, she looked at her accumulated experience and saw that it had jumped to 346 points. She was far from leveling up, but that didn't mean much to her. Lu Shu was happy with any progress. While thinking of this, Lu Shu looked at how the rose fairies began moving the corpses around. Will they also transform them into fertilizer? Without proper soil and proper resources, her energy-gathering method wouldn't work. After all, it didn't give her experience daily out of nowhere. She needed to feed. Other than that, Lu Shu grew like a normal creature as well. It was much slower than the burst her level up gave her, but she did increase in size constantly as time went by. Her roots slowly expanded around her, piercing through the moist earth at a very gentle pace. It feels nice. The earth is cool and refreshing. Lu Shu suddenly felt one of her roots hit something piercing straight down. Rock. Her senses expanded in that direction, sending pulses of energy in the direction of the root that found an obstacle. The energy pulse she sent expanded on the root, giving her a clear vision of that area. This root is around 40 meters deep. Is this a wall of rocks? Can I dig through? While Lu Shu was focusing on that, a notification appeared in her mind that surprised her. Charm of the seedling has attracted a separate human level 9. Proficiency increased by 9. X4. Charm of the seedling has attracted a pyroether emberites Sylvan level 6. Proficiency increased by 6. Humans? Sylvans? What kind of little friends are those? Lu Shu looked at her ether mana and anima energy and became a bit worried. I hope they are not bad little friends. She retracted her gaze from the wall of rocks, for now, looking toward the place where she had sensed their approach. Once she looked in that direction with a world tree eye, she spotted one woman with fiery red hair and orange eyes looking her way with a very strange expression. Far behind that woman, there were 4 humans that were hiding behind some trees. However, they were out in the open for Lu Shu as her roots had already extended that far, making their current appearances quite comical. Do they like crouching? Still, there was one thing that took Lu Shu's attention, and that was, they are so tall. While the rose fairies were humanoid, their stature was just too small compared to others. So, with them as a reference, everything else appeared to be enormous to Lu Shu. Even when she knew that humans and Sylvans were the standard size, knowledge gained while reading, or rather, absorbing, the woodcrafting books. She saw Clavel and Zinnia flying forward while raising their hands, ready to strike. So Lu Shu similarly focused on them. Are they dangerous? Why are Clavel and Zinnia reacting so strongly? She refocused on them, looking at the Sylvan for a longer time. She was very beautiful compared to anyone she had seen until now, and her aura was also welcoming. Once her world tree eye covered the red-haired woman, she strangely saw the woman shudder as she looked at her, making Lu Shu feel a strange sense of danger. However, it was a complicated danger that didn't cause her to react like when someone attacked her. What's this feeling? Also, Lu Shu focused on the trembling woman and asked herself, why is her face getting redder? Is that because she can't control flames? So cool, Clavel shouted. Sylvan, we are rose fairies, one of the few races that protect nature. Retreat. We are not a threat. There was one reason Clavel shouted and didn't attack right away. When her eyes landed on the woman, even though she could see that she was a level 6, her ternary essences were absurdly high. Not only that, Clavel felt a drop of sweat falling from her temple. It feels as if I'm facing Queen Floor. Why is this Sylvan so strong? Thankfully for her, the Sylvan seemed to have been mesmerized by Lu Shu, but that was not that good either. Clavel saw the Sylvan snapping out of her daze and looking her way, making Clavel tense up. She heard her say with a stutter, See that tree, no? That beauty dash. The Sylvan covered her face. Kia, who am I calling a beauty? Stupid, we just got to know each other. The rose fairies, the humans, and even Lu Shu looked at her with extremely weird gazes. Cinderelle patted her face and coughed, tried to regain her usual cool. However, the rose fairies could clearly see that, even though her posture was straight and her face was serious, the reddish tint on her cheek and the twitch of her lips trying to bend upward were more than apparent. Ahem. Rose fairies, I'm called Cinderiel. Can you let me get closer to... Cinderiel looked at Lu Shu shyly and tried to say seriously. That pretty world tree. Ariel and the other humans walked out of the forest, and Ariel shouted, See, Cinder, what in the branches above are you doing? They're monsters. What if they attack you? Ariel looked at the noticeable female figure on the tree's trunk and said with a grave face, Moreover, that's a world tree. What if she attacks us? We'll need to attack back, and attacking a world tree is never a good idea. Cinderiel looked at Ariel with a piercing gaze and spat. She won't attack us, and if you dare put a hand on her. Cinderiel didn't finish her sentence, but her glowing orange eyes were more than enough. Ariel felt her heart constrict in fear for a second, as if a powerful predator had locked on her. See, Cinder, I didn't mean that we will, but you know. Ariel gulped. To defend ourselves and such. Cinderiel looked at Lu Shu and told Ariel, There is no need to worry. Then, she ignored her and started walking forward with her hands spread out in a gesture of surrender. I am really not trying to do anything. I just want to speak with her. Clavel quickly and nervously said, Stop right there. Don't take another step, or we'll attack. Cinderiel paused, looking nervous, not because of the fairy surrounding her, but because she didn't want to make a bad impression in front of the world tree. I found her. 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 Her mind was constantly spinning with those thoughts as her eyes traced every branch, leaf, and trace of the relatively young tree. Such a perfect bark, Kia. Look at her branches, dropping so cutely. Oh, her leaves are so pretty. I want to trim them gently. How about taking care of her trunk? Cinderiel's eyes landed on the protrusions similar to breasts and blushed. Big. Her eyes then started lowering toward the waist area, but she quickly stopped herself. Don't. I'm a pervert. I shouldn't look at a lady when she is naked and vulnerable. However, if one were to look where her eyes were looking, they would be able to notice them roaming everywhere. She said no in her head, but physically, she was unable to stop her brain from snapping photos with each of her blinks. Lu Shu looked strangely at the creature that was making funny faces with a hint of cautiousness. Why do I feel like I'm being eaten? A predator? Are Sylvans a world tree's natural predator? Well, she was not too far off. Sylvans did prey on world trees. After all, what is happening here? Cinderiel's and the human's relaxed mood completely disappeared as a powerful aura washed all over them together with the sound of many buzzing wings. Cinderiel and the others turned to see a much larger rose fairy arriving with a terrifyingly cold face and wind ether mana swirling around her figure in massive torrents. Ariel shouted with urgency, Cinder, run. That's a level 12. However, Cinderiel refused to leave. Rose Fairy Chief, I'm not here with ill intentions. However, Flo was not buying it and snarled, You know that there is a world tree here now. How could I leave you to return and be sure that Fortuna's world tree won't send an army to kill the sapling? Flora's energy became increasingly turbulent when she considered the dangers that leaving these people could cause to the young Lu Shu. You are unlucky, but I can only kill you to silence you. Lu Shu looked at the situation and couldn't help but feel uncomfortable when she imagined the red-haired Sylvan dying. However, she didn't know how to interfere. Her usual energy pulses worked by sending energy right onto a creature. When Flora was actively using ether mana, she created a shield to protect her weak body. This shield blocked all kinds of attacks, including Lu Shu's pulses. Cinderiel saw that Flora wasn't prepared to talk and couldn't help but bite her lips, shouting, I don't want to hurt you, but you are leaving me with no chance. Rose Fairy Chief, I sincerely have no ill intent toward that world tree. On the contrary, I'm willing to help you protect her. Flora extended her hand forward and scowled. Lies. How could a resident from Fortuna City be so willing to help nurture a world tree so close? After all, world trees didn't like each other's presence, and more often than not, when two world trees met, it would end in a brutal fight where only one of them remained alive. Cinderelle saw that Fleur was truly going to attack, so she bit her lips and chanted, "Don't blame me, Rose Fairy Chief. Pyro Ether, Sylvan Body, Liberation." With her chant, a tornado of fire surrounded Cinderelle, and Fleur quickly shot several powerful wind blades. The tornado of fire destroyed the wind crescents and dispelled quickly, revealing an entirely changed Cinderelle. Unlike her human form, which had just different colored hair, she looked like a completely new being this time. Her skin was reddish and bark-like, while her body was covered in clothes made of flaming leaves. Her stature had doubled, and her legs had grown root-like protrusions that quickly latched on the ground. Her hair was made out of pure fire ether mana, and her orange eyes glowed while leaving trails of light as she moved. The reason for Sylvan's race domination throughout the world was this natural ability to transform into a tree-like being that was mobile as well. While she could latch onto the ground, she could move as quickly, if not more rapidly than before. It was a complete transformation whose only weakness was its short duration and inability to use as they pleased. Fleur's face became serious when Cinder's aura seemed to have made a qualitative leap and caught up with hers. With a heavy heart, she quickly analyzed her. Her previous stats were around 5,000 ether mana, while her other two didn't reach 3,000 but were close. Now, level 6. Ether mana shards. 11896/11896. Four body shards. 9413/9413. Anima energy shards. 8892/8892. Fleur's face changed to one of horror, as the Sylvan stats had almost completely overcome her. However, while Fleur was startled, she didn't back down. On the contrary, she became even more aggressive and rushed at Cinderelle. Her speed was ridiculously fast, making the transformed Cinderelle have trouble following her. However, the transformed Sylvan was a force of nature and didn't need to see exactly where she was going. With no word spoken, Cinderelle lifted her staff, which now looked like a wand, and waved it. Whoosh! A torrent of flames rushed forward, creating a wall of fire in front of Fleur. Fleur's eyes sharpened as she quickly maneuvered upward, dodging the attack, only to be met by a large fireball shooting straight at her. Without missing a single beat, Fleur shot a wind sphere. Both attacks collided in a large, fiery explosion. The hot air shockwave hit everyone like a wall of heat, making them frown as they observed the quick-paced battlefield. Fleur moved around quickly, sending several wind blades Cinderelle's way. Meanwhile, Cinderelle didn't move from her standing place as she sent one attack after another. The number of attacks Cinderelle was throwing was far above Fleur's, which made Fleur sneer. Using abilities so recklessly will be your bane. To make sure, she decided to check on Cinderelle's ether mana consumption, only for her sneer to disappear. What's this regeneration? She could actually see the numbers go up when Cinderelle didn't shoot. Cinderelle recovered around 6 shards for each of her ternary essences each second that passed. If transformed into shards per hour, that kind of regeneration would become 21,600 shards per hour. To put into perspective, Lu Shu had yet to reach 200 in any of her ternary essences. Ridiculous. How long can she even maintain this form? We've been fighting for 2 minutes already. Fleur looked at her own ether mana and bit her lips. What's worse is that the few attacks I managed to land chipped all around 604 body shards. That's nothing. Fleur's face became murderous as her hidden, bloodthirsty nature started resurfacing. The current Fleur couldn't even be compared with the usual easygoing and lazy Rose Fairy Queen. It was to the point that Lu Shu's World Tree focused on Fleur instead of the creature that had caught her attention so much since she arrived. If I can't chip your foe away, I'll steal it with one strike. Four body shards were a representation of a creature's vitality. If someone managed to behead another person, even if they had all their four body shards, they would die without a chance to retaliate. Meanwhile, Cinderiel had been fighting with everything she had. While it looked like she had it easy because she wasn't moving, her heart was beating extremely fast as surprise and fear slowly overtook them. I can't weaken her. Is a level 12 that strong? No, it's not because she is a level 12. Cinderiel looked at the change in the atmosphere around Floor and became seriously nervous. I only have 2 minutes and 10 seconds left of this transformation. I'll be done if I can't weaken her enough before that. Floor's attacks have been ruthless and all aimed at lethal spots. This forced Cinderiel to protect those places, and because of the onslaught, she had become so cautious that attacks that didn't aim for lethal spots were not stopped anymore. After all, her defenses were ridiculously high with her currently transformed body. Of course, she had no way of knowing that that had been Floor's initial aim at first. With creatures that had enormous pools of vitality, you needed to slowly chip their life away by using feints and other methods or land one lethal strike. So, Floor initially tried to use several lethal strikes as feints while gradually reducing her four body shards with normal attacks. But that had changed. With no indications that the transformation was going to end soon, Floor couldn't afford enough luxury to take her time. Moreover, they were fighting extremely close to Lu Shu, and Floor didn't like it. No words were exchanged as the battle became more frantic. The number of lethal attacks suddenly diminished by a lot, giving Cinderiel breathing room to move toward the quickly flying Floor. She was surprisingly agile for her size, almost closing the gap between them. I need to weaken her even if I get injured. However, she didn't realize the cold glint reflected in Floor's eyes. Cinderiel used her staff again, and two walls of fire spread in a line, blocking the Rose Fairy Queen's lateral escapes. Now, she should fly backward or upwards. If I bombard her with enough projectiles, some will land, and Floor will get weakened. But Cinderiel miscalculated. Floor didn't go up or back. She rushed forward at incredible speed. Cinderiel panicked and quickly reacted, sending another wall of fire forward. Bam! -1487. The large strike that sliced almost half of Floor's four body shards was heavy enough that the spectators thought that Floor had gone crazy. Yet, when they saw Cinderiel trying to take a step back with her face changed to one filled with panic and fear, they knew that the attack didn't go as planned. Floor rushed through the wall of flames head first, receiving heavy injuries and burning a large part of her face. However, taking advantage of the surprise, she managed to close the distance between them to less than 2 meters. Her body's ether mana and anima energy surged with incomparable might as she used Wind Slash towards Cinderiel's neck with ruthless accuracy. With a venomous and cold tone, Floor spat. Die! Slash! The wind crescent ruthlessly landed on Cinderiel's neck, creating a massive gash. -4596. Floor clicked her tongue. Not enough. A massive damage number appeared in Floor's eyes, but her face did not make a pleased face. Floor managed to close the distance while Cinderiel clutched her neck in pain and landed on her shoulder, lifting her hand and creating a torrent of winds. Cinderiel's heart was filled with terror as the bloodthirsty eyes of the burnt Rose Fairy Queen looked at her with incomparable coldness. Get away! Then, using a large part of her ether mana, her body burst into an explosion of flames that hit Floor again. The Rose Fairy Queen had to switch from offensive to defensive, or else the wounds would be too great. Her gathered wind, ether mana enveloped her body, and right after, she was hit by a powerful explosion of flames. Bam! The explosion sent the Rose Fairy Queen flying backward, burning 489 more of her four body shards. However, the Rose Fairy Queen flipped mid-air and used her legs to land against a tree trunk, ready to rush into battle again. Yet, the second she was about to launch herself forward, several branches from the tree she landed on latched onto her. Floor lost in her bloodthirst, almost retaliated against the creature that interrupted her. However, a burst of aura with the meaning of stop hit her brain strong enough to make her eyesight blur. This snapped her out of her murderous state, but even then, her gaze went straight onto the Sylvan that was slowly transforming back. She patted the branch coiled around her waist gently and spoke firmly. Lu Shu, I know you were worried, but now that she has transformed back, I can kill her easily. Let me go. However, the branch around her waist tightened instead of loosening as a big no smacked her brain one more time. Flora thought that her brain would explode or something, so she coughed and answered. See, can you answer more lightly? You are making my head ring. Also, what do you mean by no? A softer but equally persistent no reached Flora, making her speechless. Flora sighed and gave up, moving her gaze to look at the Sylvan, who was retreating slowly and fearfully while looking between the tree and herself. Flora spoke with an authoritative tone while seeing the blood rush between the Sylvan's fingers. Leave. You are lucky that your transformation has healed enough of the wound to make it non-lethal. But if you stay here, I'm going to kill you the second Lu Shu lets go of me. Another big no hit her head, and Flora finally understood between seeing the world blur. Could she not do it so strongly? Wait. She stopped me because she doesn't want me to kill the Sylvan. Flora observed the red-haired Sylvan, who was stubbornly looking at them even when her eyes were filled with fear. While the gaze had clear fear in it, Flora realized that there was something else. The way she is looking at me. Somewhere else. I've seen it somewhere else. Flora frowned, and suddenly, the image of Verdantia looking at her when she showed the world tree branch flashed in her mind. Her lips twitched, making her hiss in pain because of the burns while she lamented in her head. Is it another crazy woman? What's wrong with Lu Shu? Do all Sylvans react the same way to her? Of course, she knew that it was not true, since before finding Verdantia, Flora roamed the forest a bit and spoke with a few other Sylvans, even showing them the branch while avoiding telling its origins. For now, only Verdantia and this Sylvan called Cinderiel reacted that way. Flora felt a headache coming. I hope that the reason Lu Shu is stopping me is because the contrary is also true. With a tentative face and not bothering the rose fairies attending her, she asked, Say, Lu Shu, do you not want me to kill her because you like her? This time, a no with hesitation came her way. Hesitating? HM. Flora put into practice her interpreter skills and asked, Do you feel that she is interesting? This time, a hesitant yes arrived. HM. Still unsure. The Rose Fairy Queen leaned back and asked with a doubtful look, Do you feel that she doesn't mean harm? A clear yes arrived this time. Flora rolled her eyes and looked upward toward the tree's canopy. Are you freaking kidding me? Why did I have to work so hard for then? Lu Shu looked at the Rose Fairy Queen between her branches with an awkward feel. I wanted to stop you since the beginning, but you started fighting without asking anything. It's not my fault. Thankfully, Flora couldn't understand her words at all, or else she might have a stroke and lose her remaining four body shards and die. Cinderiel shouted, her voice trembling as she coughed. I told you, I don't want to fight. I really don't have bad intentions. Flora looked at her for a few seconds and then sighed. Whatever, let's talk. Inside her head, she was complaining. It's not that I can kill you either way with Lu Shu holding on to me like this. Speaking of which, does she not trust me? Why is she still holding on to me? The Rose Fairy Queen was about to become depressed when another branch with red fruits appeared in front of her. The Rose Fairy Queen blinked and opened her mouth, taking one into her body. You've consumed Enchanted Basic Foer Berry and regained 100 Foer body shards. There are 4 consumptions remaining. Enchanted. She quickly analyzed Lu Shu, and her heart softened when she saw 400 extra Foer body shards missing from Lu Shu's pool. She used her own vitality to enhance these fruits. Flora sighed with a smile and munched on another delicious berry. It seems that she just wants to take care of me. Hee, cute child. With Flora's words, the tension all around dropped a few notches. During the entire fight, the Rose Fairies and humans had both been tense, ready to interfere if the other side made a move. While the Rose Fairies weren't as strong, they were much more numerous. After all, The rose fairies that went out with Fleur had already returned. In terms of numbers, they were more than 10 times theirs. Thankfully, the fight didn't escalate, and Fleur was stopped by Lu Shu. While Fleur did indeed gravel injured Cinderiel, the same was true for the opposite. In short, it was a real fight where blows were exchanged, but not. It had passed, so both parties could take their time to relax their taut nerves. Cinderiel took in a deep breath, calming her restless body after experiencing a near-death call. She had never expected Fleur to be so decisive and powerful. When she transformed, almost all her stats but ether were clearly above Fleur's. And yet, making use of very risky tactics, Fleur managed to very nearly bring her down. If she failed to react at that time, when Fleur landed on her shoulder, her head would have probably been detached from her body before she knew what happened. Her explosive flame attack released to blow Fleur away was not controlled in any way, and its strength, with her stats while transformed, was enough to probably kill all creatures below level 10 in a large radius. No one knew how the rest of the battle would go after Cinderiel blasted Fleur away. After all, Fleur had lost a good chunk of her forward body shards and ether mana shards. Fleur was exhausted, while Cinderiel still had around 50 seconds more of her 5-minute-long transformation at that time. On the other side, Fleur's mental strength and decisiveness were leagues above Cinderiel's, so it was normal to think that as long as she managed to give a decisive blow, Fleur would be able to win eventually. Regardless, it was a close battle that could go either way. Lu Shu looked at both sides, and seeing that they were calm, she finally decided to let go of Fleur. She was a bit confused as to why she stopped Fleur. Until now, Fleur has been her guardian, caretaker, and even teacher in many matters. She provided her with knowledge, sustenance, and a safe environment without asking much in return. Lu Shu didn't take her fruits into account, even though they were incredibly influential for the development of young rose fairies, because it was an almost effortless action on her part. Now that she had mastered the process, it was something that she did with her subconsciousness. And yet, I wanted to protect that Sylvan from Fleur when that Sylvan injured Fleur so much. She was honestly confused. Why? Her world tree eye was firmly locked on the red-haired Sylvan, not knowing why she kept protecting her after Fleur was injured to the point that she used her own forward body shards to enhance fruits and feed them to her. After a while, she understood. Her aura. Lu Shu finally realized how welcoming and gentle Cinderiel's aura was. It was attractive and warm, making Lu Shu unconsciously want to get closer to her, like gentle heat during a cold day or the feeling of her roots being nestled in warm and nutritious earth. While Lu Shu thought of all of that, Fleur used her damaged wings to fly up while resisting the pain and land on one of Lu Shu's thicker branches. She plopped her little butt there and sighed in tiredness and pain. Tisk TSK. It has been a long while since I got injuries like these. While Lu Shu was a willow-like tree, not all her branches were the thin kind that dropped. A few sturdy ones in her canopy held the softer and longer branches. While she recovered 500 forward body shards thanks to Lu Shu's small sacrifice, Fleur was still weak. The burns created by Cinderiel were that dangerous. Moreover, the action of using her own forward was something Lu Shu certainly couldn't do daily or even weekly, as consuming her own forward body shard was quite damaging on a fundamental level. Fleur looked at Cinderiel, who was still holding her neck, and asked, "Well, speak, Sylvan. You say that you want to know. You said that you would not reveal the secret of a world tree residing here. How could I trust that?" Cinderiel chewed her lips. The wound on her neck still hurt, and for some reason, seeing Fleur resting in the branches of the world tree made her heart twist with envy. I also want to sit there. Even if she was given permission, the branches were too thick for her to sit comfortably, but the feeling of wanting to do the same was there. After observing for a few moments, she answered loud and clear, with no shame in her voice. "Because I've come to adore her." Everyone paused, humans and rose fairies alike, looking at the Sylvan with bewildered expressions. Lu Shu looked at her strangely as well. "Adore me? That word means to like someone very much, right?" Lu Shu asked herself with a puzzled mind. "Why does she adore me? Is it a normal thing for Sylvans? Looking around, Lu Shu saw similar shocked, bewildered, and frowning expressions everywhere, which showed that this was not normal behavior. Refocusing on the Sylvan looking between her trunk and floor, the world tree felt strangely flustered. It was more of a feeling of discomfort than anything else since Lu Shu didn't understand complex emotions much. Meanwhile, be it the humans and rose fairies that saw her arrival remembered her actions and mannerisms, and all came to the same conclusion. Wait, she really does. Since the start of their encounter, Cinderelle had been acting strangely, which threw many people in a loop, and they couldn't understand why she acted that way. However, if her words were the truth, then her actions all made sense. Flor looked at her and pondered for a while. This woman and Verdantia do resemble each other when it comes to how they've treated Lu Shu. Flor thought with a wry smile. At least this one saw the entire tree before saying something like that. Verdantia became obsessed with just a branch. Flor would come to know more about Cinderelle in the future, and she would remember her thoughts at this time, making her regret thinking they were different in any sense. Flor commented, "Well, that reasoning is not enough. I want more tangible proof to confirm her words." In truth, those words were enough to make Flor believe in her because of the simple fact that Sylvans were extremely serious about their romantic interests. While it was not definitive that a Sylvan would never use that as an excuse, it was rare. Moreover, unless Cinderelle was a perfect actress, Flor was confident in her vision. She also had the same feeling when she spoke with Verdantia, and the sense of trust that both of them gave her was pretty similar. Touching one of her itchy burns, Flor added, "Moreover, even if you add proof for yourself, what about those 4 humans behind you?" Cinderelle, who was about to recount her childhood memory, paused, her words getting choked in her throat by Flor's sharp question. "Right, what about them?" Looking at Ariel and the other 3 stiffened people, Cinderelle frowned. "We have known each other for a few hours, and it is true that we can't trust them to keep the secret." Her eyes flashed with the image of Lu Shu being attacked and rooted out from the ground, and her heart became extremely cold and murderous while her eyes became gloomy. She asked her tone as usual, "What are your thoughts?" Ariel wanted to curse in all the languages she knew. "Do I even have an option? That crazy level 12 is staring at us like hunting prey, and you are clearly on their side. While I don't think Cinderelle would attack us for that world tree, I can't ignore the option." Ariel wanted to pull her hair out of frustration, but she made a perfect and businesslike smile. "Of course, we don't mind keeping this a secret. As long as we are returned alive and in one piece, I'm happy. Ha ha." Flor sighed. "Right. That's the feeling when someone doesn't really speak the truth. Too stiff, too professional. Who uses those words with a monster who is perceived as stupid?" Of course, Flor didn't take into account her change in charisma after becoming a Rose Fairy Queen, thanks to being the first to discover Lu Shu's world tree nature. In truth, while she still had that definite monster aura around her, Flor was much more dignified, and even these people had trouble keeping their chins up. "Human woman, are you the leader of the group?" Her question was met with a nod and a formal knee bending while holding the sides of her clothes. "It is a pleasure to meet you. My name is Ariel. I am part of the Sunflower Caravan merchant group, and these people are indeed my subordinates. We've come to this forest in search of a few items and to check out, together with Cinderelle, if a beast tide was starting to gather in the golden sap forest." Ariel thought being completely honest with certain facts would gain their confidence, but Flor didn't easily lower her guard. She learned in the past that humans are a cunning and intelligent race. Many can become really good actors in overcoming difficulties. An influential and mighty human who specialized in those ways could even influence others enough to change opinions about small habits. This ability didn't seem all that powerful for a common person, but when used in the correct hands, it could become a tool to reshape society. Flor got thoughtful and thought about it for a few minutes straight, without losing eye contact with the 5 intruders. The Thornstride army is marching toward here, so I need to ask quickly and make decisions before it is too late. How can I convince these humans to work for Lu Shu? Flor paused. "Wait, a caravan? Those transporting lines that I've seen a few times. Ariel nodded. Yes, we specialize in opening routes and transporting goods. We are a neutral party that doesn't usually get involved in wars, as we always go to the place that wins to rebuild ourselves a new business with new opportunities. Floor pondered for a few seconds and asked, "Do you want to become our caravan?" Ariel and the rest paused, not expecting such a question. The three friends frowned at the offer. What could they even gather here? There are no commodities that would increase our caravan's value. Stopping here is a waste. Floor scoffed. Give it 1 year, and you might be begging to enter again? Just know that if you don't take my current offer, you will regret it when the prices of every single building and trade go far and above. Floor lifted an eyebrow. Remember who I am sitting on, and answer carefully, human. The four humans paused, looking at the world tree with a thoughtful expression. Ariel's face changed a bit at Floor's offer. Regardless of whether she was sincere, they didn't need to guess. Floor had shown a willingness to kill over just suspicions. Now, she was giving them an offer based on their professions. While Ariel had never intended to work for monsters, she could see that these ones were different on a very fundamental level. Floor had shown certain intelligence that you could only see in sapient creatures. While many beasts could think, act, and form small groups, they would never go beyond certain limits. Ariel knew of this, so her eyes, while looking at Floor, who wished for something like a caravan, changed from seeing her as an intelligent monster to an intelligent peer. After pondering for a while, she finally spoke. I admit the offer is really tempting. However, Chief of the Rose Fairies, do you even have goods that can be traded that our caravan could have? She had dismissed it a few moments ago, but now that she learned that the monster was really trying to negotiate and not throwing words to confuse and tempt her, Ariel put forth her doubts. Floor got thoughtful for a few moments and finally threw one basic forward berry, basic ether mana berry, and basic energy berry at her. The red, blue, and yellow fruits were easily caught by Ariel and the others. Then, they analyzed them and saw their effects. Ariel's eyebrows raised. Not bad at all. Floor smirked. Those are just the basic ones. As the world tree grows, she will naturally bear better fruits. Floor gestured with her not-burned arm. Not only that, the world tree has shown plenty of willingness to nurture her surroundings. She has fought alongside our group several times and protected us actively. Ariel lifted her eyebrows. That's rare. Usually, world trees are of a non-interference mind. Floor shrugged. Well, she perhaps did so because she was attacked. However, I can tell you that she is not as indifferent as other world trees. Her willingness to stop me from continuing to fight that woman should tell you something about her. Ariel looked at the nearly 7-meter-tall tree with a profound expression. Robert looked at her with a severe expression and asked, Ariel, are you thinking? She looked at him with a smirk and asked, Want to bet your lives? If we win, I think we'll become quite influential. If we fail, sadly, we might perish. Robert sighed and crossed his arms. He was of an advanced age, so he did not have a strong adventurer's heart like he did in the past. Doles and Melee were much more interested in this, so they both swung an arm above Ariel's shoulders and smirked. Let's do it. Ariel rolled her eyes and shrugged them off. Both brothers sniggered, and the three of them looked at the muscular man. Robert sighed and nodded. Well, brats, it seems that I'll have the rust in my bones worn off while walking with you. With a snort, Ariel answered, If your bones are rusted, then mine are rotten. Then, between the laughter of the other three, she looked at Floor and nodded. Sure, I accept. Floor relaxed and leaned on Lu Shu with a lazy body. Finally, you accept. Sigh, all this work. I hate it. Ariel didn't expect Floor to become a sloth-like creature suddenly, and her lips started twitching. Is it really a good idea? What's with this change in attitude? Cinderiel looked between Floor and Lu Shu a few times, making both the tree and the Rose Fairy Queen look on with confusion. Floor asked, What's wrong? Cinderiel coughed and asked shyly, See, can I approach? Floor wanted to say no. After all, Cinderiel's eyes glowed strangely each time she looked at Lu Shu. Still, she decided to ask the tree. What do you think, Lu Shu? Lu Shu looked at Cinderiel with a pondering gaze. Strange. I should be scared of her doing something bad with her flames, right? Why am I so accepting of her? Lu Shu looked at her own skills and asked herself, does she have a skill like Charm of the Seedling? That skill helps me give a better impression to others. Ariel looked between Floor and Cinderiel and asked, why did you stop talking so suddenly? Floor blinked and stopped looking at the sky. She pointed behind her with her thumb and commented, she is thinking. Ariel's lips twitched. How long does she usually take? The Rose Fairy Queen shrugged. Who knows? There was a time when she took half a day to answer. Other times, she answers right away. We just need to wait patiently. The humans looked at everyone who accepted this situation as normal with incredulous expressions. Ariel coughed and approached slowly. I'm not that dangerous, right? So, can I approach to speak about more details of the caravan? Floor looked at her for a few seconds, making Ariel uncomfortable, and finally spoke. Amapola, you do it. Amapola acquiesced. Yes, Queen. Cinderiel blinked. Queen, Amapola, who had approached, looked at her and nodded. Our leader evolved to a Rose Fairy Queen not long ago. Cinderiel's eyes opened in realization. No wonder she can fight me back while I'm transformed. Although Floor wanted to tell her that she would also fight her back before her transformation, she actually knew that those words were just bravado. If Cinderiel had appeared before she transformed, she would have lost without a shred of doubt. Cinderiel's stats, while transformed, were just too high. Meanwhile, Lu Shu finally decided to allow Cinderiel to approach, so she sent an affirmative pulse of energy. Not only Floor, but everyone else felt as Lu Shu was not bothered. The strange feeling of being struck in the head by an affirmative feeling made the humans completely stunned. As she can communicate, Amapola, who had been speaking with them, asked with a confused expression, why wouldn't she? Ariel tripped over her own words as she spoke. And no, but a tree. She is a world tree, but don't those need like an interpreter or like a priest or something? The wild rose fairies were clueless about what they were talking about, so they just looked at Ariel blankly, making the human woman turn toward her companions. Am I the only one who finds this crazy? Meili shook his head. It's honestly quite a surprise. However, you are certainly overreacting. Look, Cinder didn't even flinch as if it were a matter of course. Cinderiel looked over and spoke. World trees with high levels of intelligence can vaguely communicate. Of course, if the tree has a high-level communication skill, they might even be able to send words or more complex thoughts. Cinderiel looked at Lu Shu and sighed. I just don't know if she has it or not. Dolly asked, confused. Aren't you able to discern a few skills as a Sylvan? There is nothing there. Cinderiel shook her head. World trees have incredibly sturdy defenses to being analyzed. Beyond their level, ternary essences or skills they have targeted you with, discerning anything else needs for the Sylvan to be overwhelmingly stronger than the World Tree. As they spoke, the Rose Fairy Queen had been keeping one eye open and constantly monitoring the flame Ether Sylvan. She had clearly seen Cinderiel's face twist with glee when the yes arrived. However, since she somewhat knew what the Sylvan's intentions were, she didn't stop her from approaching. Lu Shu is quite popular. I wonder how things will develop when Verdantia appears as well. Will those two kill each other? Floor smirked, thinking of that situation. I hope so, one less annoyance in the world. Cinderiel looked at the majestic infant world tree, her orange eyes glowing with profound light. So pretty, Lu Shu was naturally paying attention to her, so she heard her loud and clear, making her giggle. Thanks, you're pretty too. Her thoughts were expressed as a thankful good, making Cinderiel laugh. You're called Lu Shu, right? Lu Shu answered proudly. Of course, my name is the bestest of all, Tianlian Lu Shu. Although Lu Shu was quite expressive, her thoughts were translated in a simple manner because of her immaturity in controlling such auras. Her answer, since the name she thought of was different from the one Cinderiel said, was actually communicated as in not entirely. Floor was listening to Lu Shu with her eyes closed, so she said aloud, Tianlian Lu Shu. That's her full name. I just call her Lu Shu because it is shorter. Cinderiel listened and then felt the tree answering with a cheerful, affirmative aura. Why is she so cute? Although I can't tell what she is saying, I feel that it must be something cute. It was true that Lu Shu had the SSS skill, which clearly aided in these matters. However, Lu Shu still didn't realize how to squeeze even a little bit of her most high-ranked skill. She had trouble controlling E-rank skills, not to mention SSS rank ones. For now, she could just let them run passively and utilize the advantages they gave. SSS skills were not something a creature of Lu Shu's level should even see, not to mention own. The grand majority of the world didn't even know they existed. For the average person, rank A+ was the limit of legends that any creature could reach. Anything beyond that was considered fraudulent or a theme that was used commonly in fantasy literature in their world. Book authors writing about a hero that becomes stronger than the limits imposed was something that would never be out of date. Using the different races as the basis of a prohibited romance was as popular, if not more. Cinderiel, a few steps away from the World Tree, felt her entire body react. Her blood was rushing, her breathing was quickening, and her face was heating up. She could also smell the World Tree's unique fragrance, which got stronger as she approached. What is this scent? So good, so fresh, so tender. The red-haired woman took a deep breath and giggled. I might get addicted. The scent was addictive for Cinderiel, as each deep breath she took filled her lungs and brain with euphoria. With her body getting closer, Cinderiel trembled in anticipation. I'm finally going to touch her. Lu Shu observed all these reactions with a clueless expression. She just found them funny, but something inside of her was telling her that there was a strange danger behind her smile. Still, she ignored it because Cinderiel was smiling so happily that Lu Shu couldn't even start to guess why it felt somewhat dangerous. Cinderiel asked, stopping just 4 steps away from the World Tree. Lu Shu, can I call you Tiantian? It sounds cute, right? Lu Shu was confused as to why she wanted to call her like that, so she expressed her confusion. Cinderiel smiled deeply when Lu Shu didn't outright reject her. Well, I want to have a special way to call you, Lu Shu. Can I? The World Tree felt that she didn't have anything to lose, so after thinking about it for about 10 minutes, she answered affirmatively. As a Sylvan, her patience was deep, so Cinderiel stood 4 steps away from Lu Shu while looking at her without moving an inch. When she received the affirmative answer, Cinderiel's smile deepened as her eyes looked at Lu Shu with increasingly profound feelings. I see, thank you. Tiantian. When Cinderiel, the red-haired Sylvan, crossed the distance, she didn't even hold back her intentions as she hugged the tree. Her arms wound around the thick trunk as she buried her face in the somewhat rugged surface. Because Lu Shu's body was close to 7 meters tall, counting the canopy, Cinderiel reached around the waist area of the faint humanoid figure. As a world tree, her trunk was thicker than a typical tree of her height would have, making it thicker than what her arms could surround. However, Cinderiel couldn't care less right in this instant. The second she hugged Lu Shu, her entire existence seemed to have become complete. Something deep inside her that had, for the first time since forever, felt satiated. The powerful sensation entrapped her mind, body, and soul, making Cinderiel's eyes gain a deeper than usual tone that reflected her inner feelings of growing obsession. Yet, even as this powerful feeling grew inside of her, there was something that Cinderiel couldn't or didn't understand deeply. While there was a desire for a monopoly, there was a strange feeling looking at Floor and the Rose Fairies, not wanting to make them go away. In Cinderiel's mind, she knew what was happening. Her instincts as a Sylvan wanted to court this world tree and make it hers. However, at the same time, she wanted the world tree to grow and become stronger. However, from the way Floor has been treating Lu Shu, it seems that she is still quite childish mentally. What to do? Cinderiel separated from the tree when she felt the energy inside of it become strangely relaxed. I can make her accustomed to my presence. Perhaps I can become an essential part of her and slowly enter her mind. Cinderelle smiled as she separated. And to her expectations, she saw her branches extend but stop midway. This action made Cinderella's smile deepen. Meanwhile, Lu Shu was confused. Why is she hugging me? But Cinderelle might have been a person with fire affinity, something that most Flora didn't like. However, she was not any being but a Sylvan who had an affinity toward plants. It feels warm. The innate heat and aura emanating from her relaxed and made the world tree feel comfortable as if her branches were being warmed up by the sun after a cold winter. The heat from Cinderelle's aura seeped inside her and made her own energy feel attracted to it. Lu Shu looked at Cinderelle and thought, it would be nice to be smaller and fit in her arms. It was the first time Lu Shu wished to become smaller. Her entire life, even before she became a world tree, was all about getting bigger and bigger. Of course, this fleeting desire wouldn't even minimally affect her efforts to get bigger. Her primary and biggest desire was to become bigger and stronger. Her entire existence, desires, skills, and will pushed her in that direction. While Lu Shu comfortably relished in Cinderelle's presence, she suddenly felt the source of such warmth slowly getting away, making her relaxed mind become alert as the world tree, fixed on Cinderelle. Seeing her smile as she moved away, Lu Shu's branches extended unconsciously to grab onto her, but she stopped herself. Why did I reach out? Floor asked from above, interrupting Lu Shu's pondering. Did you have enough? The Sylvan looked upward and smiled, her face much more relaxed when facing Floor. Floor blinked, surprised at her adaptability. Usually, after being almost killed, a creature would remain cautious and even flinch. Of course, while Cinderelle remained cautious inside her heart, somewhat having been able to get so close to Lu Shu made it so that Floor, who was acting like a protector, looked much more pleasing to the eyes. The fact that she almost got killed by her still remained fresh in her mind. Yet, the fear she felt from that time had calmed down a lot after hugging Lu Shu. The aura emanated from her made all her other worries seem insignificant as she finally, after so many years, found the creature that the leaf belonged to. Cinderelle had been honestly doubting her own mind at some point. How could a single leaf have her so utterly captivated? However, now she understood. After seeing Lu Shu, feeling her aura, and interacting with her, even if it had been just an instant, Cinderelle understood that other than this world tree, there was no one in this world that could fit her more perfectly. Cinderelle answered Floor's question. I actually didn't, but I don't want to bother Tiantian too much in our first meeting. Floor snorted. You've adapted quite quickly, haven't you? Adding a nickname and all to Lu Shu already. Cinderelle smiled. She likes it, so there is nothing wrong with it. Floor looked at her for a few seconds, making the surroundings become tense. But after a while, the Rose Fairy Queen closed her eyes. Whatever. When are you going to leave? I want to recover from my wounds to deal with the people that are coming here. Cinderelle was about to answer that soon, but Floor's words changed her mind. What happened? Floor didn't mind explaining. Territorial battles escalated, and now there's a group with hundreds of beasts coming our way to eliminate us. It seems that not only the race we were fighting, but many others in the surroundings felt a threat when I gained too much strength. Moreover, Lu Shu's existence is not a complete secret, as some of those people know about her. Floor added, they are not as dangerous because they couldn't recognize Lu Shu as a world tree, thanks to their lack of knowledge. Yet if they are contacted by the correct people, things can escalate very quickly. Floor sighed, looking toward the blue sky through Lu Shu's canopy. Fighting you is something I wanted to avoid, but it was impossible. Cinderelle commented with a twitch of her lips. I told you I'm not dangerous. Floor gave her a side eye, filled with disdain. If you saw a Latha looking at you in the eyes and smiling while saying they're not dangerous, would you believe them? Cinderelle and the humans almost fell over while the Sylvan spluttered. Hey, Latha, what does a C-class creature have anything to do with this? Floor shrugged. For me, at that time, your existence and the existence of one felt equally threatening. If I let you go without confirming that you would indeed not spread information about Lu Shu, I would only be inviting over a bunch of high-level people who want to kill us all. Ariel and the rest wanted to refute it, but they couldn't because it was actually true. Most powers that had a world tree as their core were at odds with others similar. Very rarely would these people join hands for anything. Moreover, for older powers with more history, indoctrination often taught that their own world tree was the only true world tree, while the rest were fakes that were to be purged. Not many were fooled by this propaganda, but those who became almost impossible to convince otherwise. Physiological beliefs were a formidable weapon for those ignorant. They could reach the point of defining a person's personality, and therefore making the believer of those teachings that anything that goes against it, regardless of how good arguments or facts were, was nothing but gibberish. While Fleur was unaware of many of these facts, that didn't diminish the correctness of her decisions. Although she jumped to conclusions, who could be cautious and patient in a jungle zone that was about to become a war zone? Cinderiel changed the subject. Anyway, can we? Cinderiel looked at the humans for a brief moment and continued. Can I participate in the defense? I will even listen to your orders. However, I will probably ignore any order that goes against Tiantian's safety. Ariel approached. Hey, I bet a large part of my future here. Since you were talking about that, you might as well include the Sunflower Caravan as sub-leader. Cinderiel looked over with surprise. And you wanted me to help you? Don't you have enough influence to manage and ask for powerful explorers? Cinderiel rationalized. While the Sunflower Caravan is really not a powerful group, you can always ask for top personnel as long as you're close enough to the top people. Ariel shook her head. Internal problems are quite deep. Anyways, what's wrong, Rose Fairy Queen? Fleur smiled. Changing the title now? Ariel laughed. Now that we are close, we can finally analyze you and see your race and ternary essences. Quite a powerful creature. Fleur sighed ruefully. I'm still behind to that thing when she transforms. Cinderiel snorted. Hey, be more respectful. Who are you calling a thing? Fleur rolled her eyes. I'll be respectful when you don't annoy me. Then, she finally answered the question. As I said, a tide of beasts is coming our way. We need to defend it, and while we're a bit short on personnel, Lushu honestly counts as a small army. As long as she has ether mana and anima energy to help us, victory is not that hair. So I thought if you all didn't appear and make this. She looked at her burnt skin and sighed. Cinderiel wanted to retort, but she couldn't. Don't worry, we'll help. Fleur smiled. That would be quite nice. Also, she looked at the merchants and asked, any book around there related to communicating with world trees? There are some things I've failed to understand lately, so I'm a bit eager to get something like that. The four of them looked at each other and shook their heads. Those kinds of books are usually in libraries, not in our hands, where they can easily be broken by our fights. Fleur nodded. A library is a place to store books, right? The others confirmed it, and Fleur asked out of curiosity, is it possible to take them out permanently? A place like that is not usually where you can buy books. Of course, they have their prices, and they will be sold even more expensive than the original for being unique many times. Fleur thought of Verdantia and pondered. How did that woman deal with the fact that she have lost those 3 important books? Placing those thoughts aside, Fleur told one Rose Fairy to go get Ignatia while she explained a bit about the Thornstrides and other races they've spotted. Ariel asked, curious. We could use some kind of building, but do you have any? Fleur snorted. Of course I don't. Why would dashed? Suddenly, several pulses of energy burst from the tree with the meaning of yes. The 6 people looked at the world tree with many different expressions. Some wondered how she did that, something they hadn't been accustomed to even after all this time. Others were looking with a strange glint in her eyes, while Fleur knew what was coming and prepared herself. I'll need to be an interpreter again, it seems. I wonder when Lu Shu will be able to talk with us. Lu Shu had been quietly listening to their conversation. She had learned that another world tree was nearby, and that world trees didn't like each other much from the looks of it. Lu Shu didn't find it strange. After all, her reaction when other trees entered her territory was to uproot them and destroy them. If another world tree tries to enter my domain, don't blame me for being ruthless. Even if we're the same, You mess with me, then, I'll uproot you. Yeah. So, as they spoke, Lu Shu learned a few interesting facts, some of which she didn't care about, like the caravan thing, and some that she found interesting. And then, the human woman suddenly spoke about needing buildings or something. Lu Shu became ecstatic. I can finally ask about construction things. Floor will surely understand what I want to explain now. Her trust in the Rose Fairy Queen deciphering her babblings had already reached incredible levels. So without losing a single second and reacting almost as fast as she did when fighting, Lu Shu jumped into the conversation with a loud, "I want buildings too." And that aura vigorously washed all over them with the feeling of affirmation. Looking over, the five people looked confused as they looked at the tree. Floor, on the other hand, asked, "Do you want something, Lu Shu?" Lu Shu responded with noticeable enthusiasm. Yes, her enthusiasm was felt, quite literally. Ariel spoke with a stutter. Her aura is quite strong. What level is she, 9? 10. Floor looked at her and asked, "What? You haven't analyzed her." She scratched her cheek. As humans, it is complicated to see the stats of plant beings. Of course, usually there are no problems. However, when we speak about world trees, I would need to be a lot stronger than her to see. Floor hummed with interest. I see. Then, she turned around without answering her question and directed her voice toward Lu Shu. Is the thing you want something we spoke about? Lu Shu giggled in her mind at Floor's usual sharpness and sent another affirmation. Floor nodded and got thoughtful. She asked, "What were we speaking about?" Robert commented, "Defensive tactics?" Floor tilted her head, not feeling that Lu Shu was trying to interject about that. Her lack of response was also easy to interpret as a negative to that topic. The other time was about making weapons, right? Then, what do we speak about that? Oh, Floor muttered, "Buildings." Lu Shu would have leaped in joy if she had legs, but she still bombarded her trusty guardian with plenty of cheerful messages. Yes, yes. Wow, Floor. Amazing. Floor always knows what I want. The people around became flabbergasted as Floor began holding her forehead, while several energy auras hit her one after another. It was clear that her mutter was the correct answer. At the side, Cinderelle observed and took notes. I need to become good at understanding her. Ariel couldn't help but look at Floor with her lips twitching. How often do you have to deal with this? Floor flew toward Lu Shu to pat her trunk and calm her down as she responded. Not that often. After all, Lu Shu sometimes goes to sleep for long periods of time. But when she wants something, Floor laughed with a pampering and helpless expression. Lu Shu always makes sure to pester me until she gets it. The tone was clearly affectionate, but not in a romantic way. They could feel the care of an elder towards someone younger. Usually, world trees were treated as sacred and untouchable beings. So even if they were young, the people around them acted carefully and respectfully. The probability of those living around them developing some sort of religion for them was nearly 100%, as most civilizations knew that world trees were different from the rest, so they treated them as such. A being born to be an overlord and a creature that was equipped with most things to deal with trouble since birth was naturally revered by common creatures. Now that Floor knew what she was talking about, her chance to speak about resources increased, as she was lacking all the F+ rank materials and many of the rest. How to tell her? Floor looked at Ariel and asked, "Can you get those books about construction when you go back? We don't need them to be about high-level construction. Basic but accurate construction books can work." Cinderelle spoke. "I can enter the library of my academy. There are plenty of books about any subject. Getting a few of them and carrying them here is not hard." Floor looked at her and shrugged. "As long as you don't bring trouble for us." "Sure." Then, she looked at the world tree and asked, "Can you build a defensive structure or something similar?" Lu Shu looked at her options and was a bit frustrated. While she could make several meters of wall, it was not nearly enough to create a good perimeter. Building something was not much of a problem. Still, the problem was about building it correctly. The skill Lu Shu needed to create these was woodworking, a skill she had with plenty of proficiency. There are materials in these structures that weren't related to wood. However, woodworking was not just the art of shaping wood. It also involved creating things out of wood and other materials. Taking into account that would make up around 90% of the house, Lu Shu was qualified for it, as long as she knew how the inner workings of houses worked. Without her being a humanoid, she couldn't even start guessing the essential layout of rooms or even the shape of the buildings. It was something she had never seen, after all. After observing her material reserves and current abilities, she was quite sure that whatever she built wouldn't be a house or anything similar. After thinking for about 1.5 hours, she gave a negative signal with a bit of hesitation. Lu Shu looked over and saw that they were doing other things, so they didn't catch her first signal. "What are they doing?" she asked. Also, when did Ignatia arrive? Listening to their conversation, she heard Ignatia speak. "Look, I'm willing to lend a few of my children. However, I really don't want to participate in this. It'll be a slaughter, and probably of those I send, many will die. I'll also come in person, but the rest, I'd rather leave them taking care of the nest." Floor agreed. "It will be difficult with just 100 of your ants, though. My people that are combat-ready are not many more than 150. Meanwhile, we would be in a 2-to-1 situation since you are willing to send around 100 children, as you would like to call them." Ignatia commented. "However, our top combatants have plenty of strength, right? Your rose fairies have plenty of them, and taking you into account, it is like having several level 10s. Floor commented. "What about the rest?" Ignatia shrugged. "They're strong, but not as strong as you." "Of course." Ignatia looked at Cinderiel with curious eyes. "Who is she?" Floor laughed. "Someone stronger than you. Ignore her from now on and continue." Cinderiel's lips twitched. "Oi!" Ignatia lifted her eyebrow. "Stronger than me?" Floor smirked. "She is." "What? You don't believe me?" Ignatia smirked back. "Should I believe you?" The Rose Fairy Queen snorted and then laughed. "Well, you can do as you please. Still, hold back from fighting with each other. We have more pressing matters to attend." Ignatia rolled her antennae and continued. "The 100 children I'll send are not that weak. They're not the strongest since they take a bit of time to nurture, and if they died, it would be quite problematic, but the ones I'm sending are far from the average." Cinderiel joined the conversation. "My transformation doesn't last much, so you should use it wisely." Floor asked with inquisitive eyes and a smile. "Is it that short?" Cinderiel refrained from answering and snorted. Lu Shu saw a chance that they were about to stop the conversation and interjected herself. "No, I can't build anything at all. So, good luck." He. Hearing her answer, their conversation went on for a while longer. Meanwhile, quite far from there, Floor was walking with a flat expression. His reptilian feet stomped on the ground with hidden anger, and his aura was leaking, causing the lower-level beasts marching with him to have trembling bodies. They dared to kill her? To kill all those people? Floor learned about the wipeout not long ago. The first thing that came to mind was to charge straight at the weakened tree and see how it went. However, he changed his mind. While his most likely heir was dead, and the legitimate one was missing and nowhere to be found, probably dead as well, Floor felt like their race would decline if she continued sitting back. So, to compensate for his seemingly weaker chances against the bigger and faster Rose Fairy Queen, he chooses to gather beasts all around into a battle. The way to do this was by telling them to kill the powerful tree in the middle of the grove. There were many ups and downs, but now the army was rolling and getting stronger for each group they visited. Floor had been shot down several times and beaten up a couple of times. Moreover, both those times were when he was clueless about why he was beaten down. However, besides those slightly embarrassing moments, everything was rolling. He didn't notice that as they moved, their group mentality was getting at them. As a group of several different races with different values, even between beasts, it was not uncommon for fights to break out during rest time. While Floor managed to have something similar to a beast tide, it was not one. In a beast tide, every creature is in a frenzy and out of control, running in one direction until it cools down or dies because of any of thousands of ways a beast had died in one. A chief from a serpentine race approached and asked with a hiss. Humanoid monsters were almost as rare as they could get, so even when the boss spoke, the creatures around him dealt the damage. When are we arriving to fight that powerful tree? Will we see it from far away? Fleur looked at the hissing and talkative young snake and rubbed his forehead. She is young, so it is natural for it not to be stronger than us or big enough to see from far away. Fleur snorted. Should have snapped it like a branch so that we didn't have to do this. The snake shook his head. Did you have a chance? Fleur nodded. I had. I just wanted to check on it before I snapped it, because he did give resources to the rose fairies. This made me intrigued, so I wanted to snatch that place. Fleur sighed. I regret it. I should have just killed her when I had the chance. Meanwhile, on the other side of the forest, the ominous sound of approaching beasts grew louder. Despite the difficulty of hearing in the air, Lu Shu could sense their presence through the vibrations of their heavy steps, transmitted to her through her roots. Lu Shu understood the meaning of these vibrations mainly because she was accustomed to hearing the forest sounds through her roots. Remember that while Lu Shu used World Tree Eye to look at the nearby world around her, her other senses were as proficient at detecting, but they focused on different types of senses and information to rely on Lu Shu on what was happening around her. Her mind, speaking of normal intelligence, was very immature. However, as a tree, her ability to multitask, absorb, and process several sources of information was unmatched. The reason for Lu Shu's delayed responses was not her inability to answer quickly. It was because her body, which was gradually transforming into a massive creature, was consuming most of her information processing capacity. If a human mind were placed in Lu Shu, it would be overwhelmed by the amount of information coursing through its entire body, leading to the tree wilting and the mind dying with it. Sensing their approach, Lu Shu looked around the rose fairies and saw they were clueless. Most of them were still doing their daily actions, while 3 of them were flying around her while trimming her branches and cleaning her bark. Lu Shu felt extremely comfortable, but she couldn't help but worry. HM? They don't know. Should I tell them? Lu Shu slowly pondered and finally decided to do so after she saw Fleur getting up from a nap. It had been almost 1.5 days since Cinderella arrived. Speaking of the attack, Fleur was confused as to why the river beavers didn't attack with the rest. If what they wanted was to kill Lu Shu, it would be a very suicidal action, as it proved to be to go alone against her. Even without taking into account Lu Shu's surprising strength, Fleur's presence should have been enough of a warning. However, they still came. The Rose Fairy Queen had discussed this with the new guests, and their best guess was that Lu Shu was such a precious resource for them that they chose to separate and try to take everything before the others arrived. With a level 10 in the mix, their ability to trample almost any group in the Golden Sap forest might have swelled the beast's ego, making them more willing to take risks. Sadly, those poor creatures met a mighty world tree. Fleur, who was thinking about these things, suddenly felt an energy pulse of danger coming from Lu Shu. She quickly sat up and flew upward, looking around with sharp eyes. Sadly, the lush forest prevented her from seeing anything that caught her attention. However, this didn't relax her. On the contrary, it made her even more cautious. After 2 days of resting and eating Lu Shu's regular fruits, she managed to recover the remaining Foer body shards and most of her ether mana shards. Fleur's regeneration allowed her to recover around 300 Foer body shards daily and nearly 1,100 ether mana daily. Adding the 100 extra from 10 berries of each ternary essence, Fleur recovered enough Foer body shards to heal and enough ether mana shards to regain more than 80% of her ether mana. When she flew down with her regained agility, Fleur shouted, "Prepare for combat." All Rose Fairies moved into action immediately, while Cinderella and the 4 humans looked around with confusion. Robert asked, "What's wrong, Fairy Queen?" During these last 2 days, they'd become much closer and could talk with each other on a much more casual level. This didn't mean that formalities were thrown out of the window, but at least it was progressing in the right direction. Fleur spoke with a grave tone. "Lu Shu told me there's danger. It must be because the beasts are approaching." Ariel was surprised. "Does she always inform your people of danger?" Fleur shook her head. "I guess she does it for the times she is also in danger." Doles frowned. That sounded a bit ungrateful now. Meili elbowed his side while speaking between his teeth. You asshole brother, apologize. That a world tree we are speaking about. Doles realized that he had been treating Lu Shu as any other creature, and he realized his mistake. While it was true that Lu Shu's actions feel inconsiderate, she was a creature who, firstly, couldn't move and allowed the Rose Fairies to live together. Secondly, a being whose thinking modus operandi worked much differently. Thirdly, and most importantly, a strong being that was acting as a protector regardless of the reasons behind it. When taken into account, the fact that Lu Shu even cared to communicate was already an achievement the Rose Fairies had accomplished through time to gain the World Tree's trust. Flora looked at Doles with a colder-than-usual look, but she didn't bother answering. Much more pressing situations called for her attention, right that they were about to be attacked by the numerous creatures. Flora spoke flatly. It's time to fulfill your promise. You will fight alongside the Rose Fairies to repel this beast tide. I'll go call Ignatia as well. They all nodded, so Flora didn't bother anymore and went to prepare. Cinderielle sighed as she looked at Doles. I know it is difficult, but please try to avoid commenting about how we, creatures with floral ancestry, treat world trees. Ariel scratched her head and looked at him. Say, couldn't you stay silent? Doles coughed and apologized, looking awkward. Sorry, I just felt like it was as such and commented about it. After that minor hiccup, 1 hour went by while Flor and the rest moved around and prepared for battle. While they were ready to fight since minute one, because the enemy wasn't appearing, they took their time to create a proper alerting system. While the humans didn't want to doubt, how could the world tree tell from that far away? They didn't understand how a tree's perception or vision worked, but being able to sense from that far away was honestly terrifying. Aren't ambushes just worthless with a world tree around? How many more secrets does a world tree hold? After waiting for around 40 minutes longer, they could finally spot in the distance the cloud created by them. So many beasts moving at once was not something that could go unnoticed. Just their steps would lift a dust cloud, like what the Rose Fairies and the rest were looking at. Then, inside those groups, there were very motivated beasts who would groan from time to time, creating small echoes. In short, stealth was not their forte. However, because it was like an avalanche, regardless of how strong or weak it was, a person would not try to stop it by pure will. Flor flew forward and advanced through the forest with a determined face. After moving far enough that being followed, even by higher levels, would give her a chance to escape, Flor looked at the approaching group of beasts with a calculating expression. Are there 600? No, perhaps more. At the helm of the group, she could see the group that probably started this. She couldn't help but get angry. You attack us, try to kill Lu Shu, and then blame it on us and do this. Flor, on the beast's side, Flor looked at Flor and spoke. I know you can escape, and probably send your younger ones to feel as well. Then, Flor sneered. However, I know why you won't. That tree, it is special for you, enough that you will die defending it. Flor didn't deny it, and Flor continued. If it weren't for that tree, I would have never bothered creating this. After all, you could just fly away. Flor snorted. I'm here to tell you to back away. Flor looked at Flor for a few seconds in pure stupefaction, and then he burst into laughter. You're not really saying that, are you? Do you think our group will just divide and go away? Flor snorted. No, we won't. We'll continue forward and trample your ground and other creatures until we become too strong to be defended against. Flor nodded. Up to you. Then, she turned around and left. She didn't want to bother any other leader who led that army, nor ask about the reason why they joined in the first place. Flor pointed forward and roared. Forward! In the group, there were a total of 654 creatures, some of those being higher tiered. The numbers were divided like this. 254 level 5 creatures, 184 level 6 creatures, 106 level 7 creatures, 78 level 8 creatures, 24 level 9 creatures, and 5 level 10, 2 level 11 creatures, and 1 level 12 creature. Faced with such a group, the Rose Fairies had 1 level 12, 1 level 9, 5 level 8s, 25 level 7s, 65 level 6s, and 98 level 5s. They were utterly lacking. Even when adding Ignatia's 100 extra ants, with 45 level 5S, 25 level 6S, 15 level 7S, 10 level 8S, and 5 level 9S. Adding the 5 guests was a reasonable force when combining both of them. Floor was not sure how much Lu Shu could inflict pain on their enemies. Like other times, they would stay within Lu Shu's range and let them come to them. If they want to attack the World Tree, they need to face the World Tree. Ariel and company looked over with tense expressions. They had seen beast hides before, but from the security of the city walls, a city was being attacked. It was not that uncommon to see them for one reason or another. The experience was impactful, but never too terrifying. After all, you were protected behind thick walls as the soldiers fought for their life. In actuality, if Lu Shu was unable to beat this beast tide, it could continue onwards by stealing all their deposits and using the experience to become something more substantial. Slowly building up momentum and eventually raising 1 or 2 cities wouldn't be that complicated. Putting that aside, Froer and the other level 10s roared, sending their respective creatures to charge at Lu Shu. On the side of the Rose Fairy mixed army, Floor also commanded her group to move. Use what we've prepared. As the beasts approached, several wind blades shot outward in several different directions. These blades targeted vines hidden in the vegetation surrounding them, opening trap doors they dug while waiting. The beat tide, coming from behind, didn't care. So, while the first line stopped, the second and third lines smashed onto them without caring, pushing them down the holes. This trap was prepared with Cinderiel's help, and flaming spikes awaited at the bottom of the pits. Cinderiel smiled. It worked. However, Floor cut her enthusiasm short. Don't get overconfident. Most of them are low level, and they will fill out these traps. The ones behind will most likely use the corpses of the fallen ones as platforms. The traps, though effective, were not numerous. It wasn't due to a lack of time, as news of the invasion had reached them days ago. The challenging terrain was the culprit, making the construction of these tools a laborious task. Even then, they managed to cut down the numbers a bit, killing around 40 creatures, a mix of low-level creatures. While it wasn't much, every point of ether mana counted in a battle of this scale. Floor's voice boomed with urgency. Prepare the spells. Remember the training and target each creature with precision. If you don't have ether mana, retreat and try to recover as much as possible with the berries and other items in the storage. Floor looked at Cinderiel and asked her, do a starting blow. When you transform, your ether mana recovery is incredibly high, right? You have leeway to waste a bit right now on low-level mobs. Cinderiel didn't hesitate much. She lifted her staff and concentrated on the energy filling her body. Like a snake coiling upward, it gathered in the tip of her staff, and then she launched a concentrated sphere of fire ether mana. The sphere hurtled forward, its path marked by a trail of destruction, until it collided with the enemy a bit further than 100 meters away, causing a terrifying explosion. Boom! The explosive ether mana ignited a large area in an instant, getting Cinderiel's mind to ring with notifications. Of course, she quickly ignored them, like everyone was used to do during battle. Only on close one-against-one was it useful to follow the notifications closely to see where the enemy was weak and where they were strong. Following the powerful attack, Floor shouted, "Attack!" Ignatia at her side created a vibrating sound with her throat that sounded like the clicking of mandibles while her body spread pheromones around to command the 100 ants. All of them came from her, as their mother, so they had similar attack methods. The 100 ants and the Rose Fairies charged their attack, creating a barrage of projectiles that quickly crossed the distance between both armies. However, while doing so, Level 10s suddenly rushed forward and used their attacks against the barrage. Boom! A large part of the attacks were blocked by the Level 10s, leaving behind several marks on their bodies that reduced their HP by a small part. Still, for the damage that it would have caused otherwise, it was a cheap price to pay. Foresaw a few ants about to charge forward and shouted hurriedly, "Ignatia, hold! Let them get closer to Lu Shu." Ignatia quickly created more piercing clicking sounds, and the 100 ants moved backward together with the rose fairies. Floor's eyes focused on the level 10s at the helm, and she muttered. A little bit more, a little bit closer. Her senses sharpened, her body tensed, and the second she saw the earth move slightly, her pupils constricted, and her voice boomed. Now, right in that instant, the land below many creatures burst into a dirt explosion as powerful roots raised and impaled several creatures. One of the level 10s, a snake-like being, managed to dodge the surprise attack. However, the roots were much more agile than they appeared to be and quickly coiled around its body. The level 10's body was sturdy, so the constricting strength of Lu Shu was clearly not enough. However, as he struggled, he felt his spine shuddering and quickly looked sideways, only to see a pair of red eyes looking at him with a terrifyingly cold expression. Moreover, these pair of murderous eyes were right by his side as a tender and slim petite hand reached out for his neck. With incredible reflexes, he moved backward. However, as if the snake was Floor's hand and not himself, she managed to follow his dodging path and land her hand with a dry sound of skin colliding. Dash 100. The snake was confused. So weak dash. Whoosh. Slash. The head of the level 10 flew high up, and Floor's ether mana plummeted by 1,500 points, infused in a massively strong wind blade that shot ahead and killed 3 more creatures before it deviated, of course, into the sky. The other level 10s were stunned as they saw one of them die as soon as the battle started. Before, when protecting their army from the massive rain of attacks, not all of them had rushed forward. Only 3 of them. One snake-like being, a bear-like creature, and a feline creature. Wasting no time, those 2 rushed toward Floor with the intention of fighting them when they heard a loud roar. Floor, fight me. However, the Rose Fairy Queen ignored Floor, who was charging toward her and retreated backward at the same speed she rushed forward. The humans had not expected their strongest combatant to suddenly rush headfirst into the middle of an army of enemy creatures and decapitate one of their strongest combatants. However, that made a rush of adrenaline and excitement rush up their bodies. Not only them, but also the rest of them were boosted in their morale as Floor perfectly took advantage of the opportunity created by Lu Shu's attack. Right then, the battlefield was suddenly submerged in an ancient and heavy aura as the world tree stopped hiding her nature. Tiantian Lu Shu was angry, extremely so. From her birth, while there have been people attacking her from time to time, she always knew that it was a coincidence to cross paths and, therefore, be attacked. While annoying, that was life. She wanted those people, and if they ignored her warning, she would kill them. However, this was the first time that she was personally targeted. She could feel deep inside that they were targeting her. The river beavers were as such, and Lu Shu slaughtered them all for that reason. This time, it wasn't just one race, but a coalition of races guided by several leaders. The significance of a single race being pushed by their leader and a group of creatures deciding that she was to be killed was different. As a world tree, a creature bound to be an overlord, the thing that she hated the most instinctually was when other creatures did not respect her existence. World trees, peaceful creatures for all but other aggressive flora in their domain, wished to spread their branches and evolve with the world around them. They wanted to become one with everything and overlook and guard their domains. Her voice, cold and sounding much more mature than usual, uttered with terrifying coldness. You want to kill me so badly? Good. I'm going to inject fear into your veins. Do you want to use 326 experience points to increase Willow Strike, F rank max level, to Willow Strike, F plus rank level 1? Yes. Congratulations. You've successfully strengthened Willow Strike. Willow Strike, F plus rank level 10/1200. The world tree is from a willow family, with characteristic long but thin branches. She can use ether mana to move them and strike a target with tremendous force. Range from 25-35 meters. The creatures, who had already closed in enough to enter her increased attack range, didn't expect the tree's branches to come alive and extend the range suddenly. However, the attacks weren't done entirely with her physical branch. An ethereal extension of her branch with the same hardness and strength as the actual branch was created with superb ether mana and anima energy control, extending far the range of whatever her branches should be able to hit. The level 9 bear hit by the branch was instantly killed as its head shattered like a watermelon being hit by a metal bat. However, that was just the beginning. Willow Strike. Bang. Die and become my fertilizers. Willow Strike. Bang. Your attempts at killing me. Willow Strike. Bang. Will only make me grow. Willow Strike. Bang. Stronger. Willow Strike. Bang. Faster. Willow Strike. Bang. Taller. Willow Strike. Bang. Sturdier. Sacrifice after sacrifice. The beast tide closed the distance between them. At the same time, the high-level beings and the level 9 humans fought together in another part of the field, not much further away than the place where the ants and rose fairies held off the beast tide inside Lu Shu's attack range. Cinderiel, while transformed, fought off the two level 11s, one of them being Frore, while Floor exchanged blows with the enemy level 12. Frore very much wanted to fight Floor and kill her, but Cinderiel was holding him off with her brutal firepower. He had a sizable char part on his chest because he had become distracted for a second, allowing Cinderiel a clean hit that sliced almost half of his forward body shards. The remaining 4 level 10s were fighting against the 4 level 9 humans and Ignatia. The level 10s were much stronger at a raw level. However, Ignatia, Robert, and the others were ordinary humans. They had equipment. Even if it was low level and the stats weren't really enough to completely breach the distance, holding them back was not much of a problem. This gave Ignatia breathing room to whittle them down slowly. While the level 10s fought, Lu Shu aimed for all the level 9s that entered her attack range, killing them all with one hit, one after another. These creatures had no chance of retaliating as Lu Shu slaughtered them one after another. The death of the powerful enemies was a massive relief for the top-level rose fairies and ants. Moreover, some beasts that managed to kill their ant enemies by pure number advantage managed to get much closer. However, getting closer to the World Tree was not as good of an idea as they thought. Ether mana and anima energy rushed along her body as she activated her every attack skill without caring about the consumption. Pure anger was expelled outward in the shape of a storm of branch attacks and roots entangling left and right. Moreover, the World Tree was using its advantage of analyzing the enemies to aim for all the high levels. Level 9s and level 8s were slaughtered one after another as the branches wildly danced around Lu Shu's imposing body. Inside Lu Shu's mind, only cold indifference remained as some creatures managed to reach her trunk and attack her. What these beasts didn't know was that Lu Shu's body was even sturdier than the average level 10. Her physique stat might have not been as high, but her physique resistance was 42%. That meant that almost half of the attack strength was virtually cut in half by her powerful bark as long as they weren't too high level. Some level 6s that attacked her even damaged themselves while attacking her, dealing more damage to themselves than they did to her.